Chapter 268. Ding Jiu's warship entered the infernal realm through the void and arrived at the infernal palace in no time. Xiao, Palace Lord Chen kept Ding Jiu's warship and the demigods of the Xia people landed. Those from the Bloodshed Tavern and the Temple of the Earth God are not allowed to enter. Please forgive us, Palace Lord Chen said before leading the Xia people into an inconspicuous hall in the infernal palace. The green-armored guard carried Dongbui Shuang and followed them in. Jing Qiu followed them in as well. There were 6 who stood outside and did not follow them in. They were not angry. Since they had joined the Bloodshed Tavern and the Temple of the Earth God, they had long since become aware of this. The moment they joined these 2 superpowers, the majority of them would place the Bloodshed Tavern and the Temple of the Earth God as their first priority, and the Xia clan as their second. If they had enough contributions, even if they died, the powerful beings of the heavenly world would guide their souls and reconstruct their bodies so that they could continue living. This was the hope of resurrection after death. Of course, those who had the qualifications to be guided to reconstruct their bodies were few and far between. Most of them only had their souls guided into the heavenly world, allowing them to continue living. They would not pay a huge price to reconstruct their bodies so that they could continue to cultivate. Although it was impossible to cultivate without reconstructing their bodies, the demigods who chose to rely on them were still willing. At least they would still be alive, right? What about the Xia people? The Xia people were ultimately a race of mortals. Although there were a few ancestors of the Xia people who became gods, none of them were able to guide their souls to reconstruct their bodies and reincarnate. Therefore, once the transcendence of the Xia people died, they were truly dead. Even their souls could not survive. The transcendence of the Xia people believed that, if they did not reconstruct their bodies, although they could still live, they would only be able to contribute their faith until their souls died of old age. Such a way of living was not what the transcendence of the Xia people wanted. What they wanted was to live a spectacular life. It was a joyous feeling. They were not willing to be bound by anything. He would rather live a happy life and then have his soul dissipate than be bound by all sorts of restrictions. Even after his soul was guided, he would continue to be controlled and contribute faith. Most of those who could become transcendents were very prideful and unyielding. Therefore, even though they knew of the benefits of the Bloodshed Tavern and the Terrene Shrine as they grew stronger, they were still a small portion of the Xia people. The Xia people did not mind. After all, everyone had their own ambitions. As long as they were not selfish enough to betray their entire race like the transcendence of the demonic faction, the Xia people would tolerate it. Rumble, the palace door closed. Within this great hall, there were many statues. These statues were all of the Xia people. Each of them had an extraordinary bearing. Some were unrestrained, some were cold and arrogant, some were calm and indifferent, and some emitted a monstrous domineering aura. These were the ancestors of the Xia people who had become gods. However, some of these statues were placed at the edge. Those that were placed at the edge were those that had lost contact with the Xia people after they became gods. This was also why the younger generations of the Xia people were cold-hearted. However, since they had become gods, they still made statues for them. As for the other statues placed at the center, they were all statues of the Xia people. The younger generations of the Xia people were also very grateful. However, although there were more than 200 statues placed in the center, most of them no longer had any aura. Because they were dead. Becoming a god, in the vast deity world, was only the beginning. In the deity world, they also had to fight and struggle. They missed their homeland, but in the process of fighting, some of them had fallen forever. Today, there were still 52 statues that were still emitting aura. Every statue had a spatial mark that they had left behind. Of the deities of the Xia people who missed their homeland, there were currently 52 of them alive. Among them, there were 3 with the strongest aura. Ancestor Yunhai, the younger generation of the Xia people, has a request. Palace Lord Chen bowed respectfully. At the same time, the other demigods present, including Jing Qiu, also bowed respectfully. Every single one of them was sincere. Emperor Yunhai. He was one of the 3 strongest deities among the 52 living deities of the Xia people. What's the matter? The white-robed, long-haired man's mouth suddenly moved as he spoke. We, the Xia people, have a young transcendent, named Dongbu Shuang. Palace Lord Chen pointed at Dongbu Shuang, who was lying on the ground like a metal statue. He is currently poisoned by the sorcerer god Saber. We are helpless. Please, Ancestor Yunhai, save his life. Sorcerer god Saber. Sorcerer god. Emperor Yunhai's statue turned to look at Dongbu Shuang. Right now, he was only able to hear and see with the help of the spatial mark. This method of detection was very crude. Is the sorcerer god Saber the one used by the sorcerer god? Emperor Yunhai asked. Yes. The green-armored protector replied. Then I definitely have no way of saving him. Emperor Yunhai said. The sorcerer god that the Beast clan worships is an extremely talented being. He is extremely proficient in the aspect of hexing poisons. I am not proficient in this aspect, so I definitely have no way of saving him. Among the Xia people, the one with the highest attainment in the Tao of medicine is undoubtedly the Purple Thunder Emperor. Now that the Purple Thunder Emperor has been recruited by the Bloodshed God Palace, he is wholeheartedly focused on the Tao of medicine. His attainment in the Tao of medicine is also extremely high. If we want to save this little fellow Dongbu Shuang, I'm afraid only the Purple Thunder Emperor has any hope of saving him. If even he cannot save him, then there is no hope. Understood, Palace Head Chen hastily replied. Emperor Yunhai nodded lightly. His statue returned to normal. Palace Lord Chen immediately activated the spatial mark on the statue of the Purple Thunder Emperor. The Purple Thunder Emperor, who was bitterly pondering over medicinal herbs in the distant deity world, sensed it. He immediately passed through the layers of world barriers to enter the statue. Ancestor Purple Thunder, this junior of the Xia people has a request. Palace Lord Chen respectfully bowed. The others followed suit. What's the matter? The Purple Thunder Emperor was a very amiable-looking old man. The 2 tufts of his beard made him look quite cute. When he was a mortal, he was a doctor, wholeheartedly focused on saving lives. Later on, he awakened the tyrannical primordial lightning bloodline, but he still comprehended the true meaning of Purple Thunder, using lightning to save lives. Unknowingly, he had become a deity. Even after entering the deity world, he was initially unremarkable. Among the ancestors of the Xia people, the dazzling ones like the Scarlet Cloud Emperor, had bravely advanced. Some of them had stagnated, and some had even died. But the Purple Thunder Emperor had surpassed them all. Today, he had become one of the 3 strongest ancestor deities of the Xia people. He had even been recruited by the Bloodshed God Palace. His future was extraordinary. Our Xia people have a young transcendent called Dongbu Shuang. He has been poisoned by the sorcerer god Saber. Palace Lord Chen said. You want me to save him? The Purple Thunder Emperor looked at the lying Dongbu Shuang. Poison from the sorcerer god Saber. Is this Saber the sorcerer god Saber? It was used by a demigod of the Beast clan. Yes, Palace Lord Chen said. The one who used the sorcerer god Saber is the current Beast clan's Grand Elder, Palace Lord Chen said. Since it can be used by a demigod, it should be the sorcerer god's divine saber when he was a deity, the Purple Thunder Emperor said. The sorcerer god is a grand world deity existence. After becoming a world deity, the weapon he used could not be used by a demigod. If he were to use his current weapon to stab this child, he would have died long ago. Even so, the saber he used in the past is the one he used when he reached the peak of the deity realm. He has nurtured it for a long period of time, so it must be abnormally powerful. I need to send my projection down to personally examine it. I'll have to trouble Ancestor Purple Thunder, Palace Lord Chen said emotionally. Hua, the space within the Great Hall began to distort, and the distorted space began to resonate with the Purple Thunder Emperor's location in the incomparably distant deity world. The Purple Thunder Emperor's vast, surging god power forcibly passed through the countless obstructions of space and the physical world to descend upon the Great Hall. The figure of an old man began to condense. Heart world projection. Actually, sending down a heart world projection was a huge price to pay, but the Purple Thunder Emperor did not hesitate to do so. To the Purple Thunder Emperor, the world of the Xia people was his home, his roots. Ancestor Purple Thunder. The demigods of the Xia people present were all somewhat excited. They had never seen the descending heart world projection of the Xia people's ancestors before, and it was very normal for demigods to not have seen the projection of the ancestors of the Xia people. If there was nothing important, the descendants of the Xia people would not disturb their ancestors, much less make them pay such a huge price to send down a heart world projection. Everyone, move aside. Let me take a look at this child. The Purple Thunder Emperor directly walked to Dongbu Shuiying's side. Although his aura was being suppressed by the will of the world, his laws of profound mysteries and other aspects were not affected at all. He lightly extended his hand. A streak of violet lightning tunneled through the gap between Shuiying's lips. Chapter 269. Everyone in the Great Hall held their breaths as they watched the scene unfold. They were all hoping that their ancestor, the Purple Thunder Emperor, would be able to rescue Dongbu Shuiying. The destruction of the demonic faction headquarters and the killing of the great demon god's doppelganger was an important victory that would be recorded in the history of the Xia people. However, Dongbu Shuiying, who was the key to their victory, had fallen here. They were unable to accept this. Time passed second by second. Everyone was waiting anxiously. The sorcerer god lives up to his name of being able to take that step and become a universe god. The Purple Thunder Emperor sighed. He actually managed to cultivate the Six Ghosts Grudge, voodoo poison when he was at the deity level. This sorcerer god's saber has been nurtured by him throughout his long years at the deity level, and it already carries the Six Ghosts Grudge voodoo poison with it. Thankfully, it's only a small amount of the voodoo poison. Cultivating voodoo. Countless dazzling existences in the god realm had long since created some terrifying voodoo poisons. Therefore, as long as one's realm reached a certain level, one could find some precious ingredients to refine a terrifying voodoo poison. The Six Ghosts Grudge voodoo poison was very famous. It was the greatest achievement of the sorcerer god after he became a god. If he used it himself when he was still a god, he could use the voodoo poison that he nurtured in his body through the sorcerer god's sword and directly into the enemy's body. Even a divine spirit expert would be in unbearable pain and be heavily injured. Even if it didn't stab the enemy, the voodoo poison could still be released into the surrounding space and seep into the enemy's body. As for the sorcerer god's sword, it was just a weapon, a medium. The long years of nurturing and using the sorcerer god's sword had caused the Six Ghosts' resentment to appear on its blade. However, its toxicity had already weakened significantly. Still, it was enough to deal with a demigod. Ancestor Purple Thunder, this voodoo poison is called Six Ghosts Grudge. Palace Lord Chen couldn't help but ask. Yes, Six Ghosts Grudge. The Purple Thunder Emperor nodded. It was only after I entered the Bloodshed God Palace that I had the chance to personally examine the countless hexing poisons. That was why he could recognize her. If I hadn't joined the Bloodshed God Palace, I wouldn't have been able to recognize you. There were countless voodoo poisons, and in order to detoxify them, one had to first identify the poison. If he couldn't recognize it, how could he solve it? Countless voodoo poisons were placed in front of them for research. This was something that countless experts who studied the Tao of alchemy yearned for. However, ordinary powers in the god realm could not afford to provide for them. Can it be solved? Asked Palace Lord Chen. The Purple Thunder Emperor swept his gaze across the crowd and said, the people here should be almost all the demigods of this generation of the Xia people. This kid named Dongbu Shuiying has been inflicted with a voodoo poison that is very troublesome. It is not impossible to save him, but I have to make things clear first. Everyone listened carefully. Qi Qiu Bai, Chao Qing, Si Kong Yang, and Yu Jing Qiu, who were close to the snow eagle in Eastern Europe, were even more nervous. Even if I concoct the medicinal solution for him to consume, firstly, Dongbo Shuang will need to consume it for a long period of time. However, the six ghosts' resentment poison will gradually adapt to it, and the more medicinal solution he consumes, the less effective it will be. After 200 years, the medicinal liquid would no longer have any effect, and Dongbo Shuang would still die. If you take the medicine too quickly, your lifespan will probably be even shorter. Secondly, with the voodoo poison in his body, he will suffer from the pain of the six ghosts' resentment poison for a long period of time. You won't know if you haven't experienced it before. I can tell you that this voodoo poison is extremely painful, and is known for its agony. The reason why Dongbo Shuang fainted is because he is in too much pain, and that is why he lost consciousness. In the future, when he drinks the medicine, the pain will lessen, but as the medicinal solution is consumed, the pain will gradually return. Under the intense pain, he will not be able to resist drinking more medicine. The more he drinks, the faster he will die. Although in theory, he can live for 200 years, in reality, he will not even live for 100 years. Also, because the voodoo poison has seeped into the body's most basic particles, the body cannot cultivate, and the primordial bloodline cannot be awakened. At the same time, the voodoo poison has seeped into his dantian, and he can no longer cultivate battle qi. The battle qi in his body will decrease with each use, until there is no battle qi left in his body. Finally, because of the terrifying pain of the six ghosts' resentment poison, even if drinking medicine can alleviate it, the pain will still be terrifying. Under this kind of pain, it will be difficult to calm down and comprehend the mysteries of heaven and earth. So, if we save him, in theory, he will live for 200 years at most, or even less than 100 years. Furthermore, he will suffer the pain of the voodoo poison day and night. He will not be able to cultivate his body or battle qi. Under this kind of pain, it will be difficult for him to comprehend the mysteries of heaven and earth. The Purple Thunder Emperor said, furthermore, to save him, we will need a large amount of medicinal liquid, enough for him to consume for 200 years. Sending this medicinal liquid down is equivalent to sending a deity weapon. Now that I have entered the Bloodshed God Palace, I can afford it. But is it worth it to pay such a huge price to save a cripple like him? The Purple Thunder Emperor looked at the group of Xia people transcendents. Whether to save him or not, it is up to you all to decide. Silence reigned. Nobody had expected such an outcome. The six ghosts' resentment poison was so painful that it could cause a transcendent to lose consciousness. This was simply unimaginable. Although Dongbo Shuang might be able to alleviate the pain by drinking the medicine, it was still extremely painful, and he would have to endure it day and night. Under this kind of torment, how could he calm down and comprehend the mysteries of heaven and earth? His body and battle qi could not be cultivated, and his lifespan would be extremely short. At most, he would live for 200 years, and this was the theoretical limit. But sending medicinal liquid was equivalent to sending a deity weapon. Throughout the long history of the Xia people, those who could send deity weapons down were all extremely formidable ancestors of the Xia people. But how many deity weapons had there been? Is there no way to completely cure Dongbo Shuang? Since we know it's the six ghosts' resentment poison, is there no way to cure it in the entire deity world? The palace lord Chen asked. There is. Not to mention the six ghosts' resentment, even if it were a more formidable hexing poison, the deity world would have a way to cure it. But we, the Xia people, cannot afford the price. The Purple Thunder Emperor said. If Dongbo Shuang were in the deity world, I could easily save him. But he is in the mortal world, and experts from the deity world cannot descend with their true bodies. Thus, he can only rely on medicinal liquid and other external items to cure him. A single medicinal liquid can allow a transcendent to expel the six ghosts' resentment poison in an instant. Sending such a medicinal liquid, is equivalent to sending down 100 deity weapons. Even if all the deities of the Xia people combined their treasures, it would not be enough. The palace Lord Chen did not dare to ask any further. Even if it was enough. It was impossible for the ancestors of the Xia people to use up all their treasures. Even if they were willing, the ancestors of the Xia people might not be willing. After all, the ancestors of the Xia people had their own days in the deity world. They had their own battles and struggles. Make your decision. Stop delaying. This kid won't be able to hold on for long. The Purple Thunder Emperor looked at all the demigods present. Jing Qiu was both anxious and nervous. Decision. Should she save him? Of course, she wanted to save him. After all, if she did not save him, Dongbu Shuang would die. But the demigods of the Xia people had to consider the price too. The Purple Thunder Emperor was willing, but the Dongbu Shuang that he saved would only be a cripple. The demigods of the Xia people exchanged glances with each other. Without any arguments, they all made their decision. Save him, the palace Lord Qin said. Save him. Mountain Lord, he did not hesitate. Snow Eagle has contributed greatly to the Xia people. He is the transcendent with the highest talent in the history of the Xia people. Originally, his future was limitless. However, for the sake of the Xia people, he went through many hardships to break into the demonic faction headquarters and destroy the physical body of the great demon god. He did so much, and was besieged by the sorcerer god and the great demon god, ultimately falling to this state. If we don't save him, will the Xia people still be the Xia people? If a transcendent dies in battle for the Xia people, then we, the Xia people, will not let down any transcendent. Save him. The Grand Elder Palace Head said. If we need 8 or 10 deity weapons to shake the foundation of the Xia people, then I might hesitate. But one less deity weapon will not shake the foundation of the Xia people. But if we don't save the Snow Eagle, we, the Xia people, will no longer be the Xia people that we are willing to sacrifice for. Chao Qing's voice boomed, his eyes like lightning. Save him. Save him. Save him. Jing Qiu's eyes reddened as she listened. All the demigods present spoke up one by one. There will cause the Purple Thunder Emperor to smile. The Xia people were still the Xia people from his memories. Although they had experienced calamities time and time again, and were even beaten to the point of being forced to retreat to the infernal realm, the Xia people had never bowed their heads. Whether it was the abyss demons, the invasion of the other worlds, the threats from the great demon god and other powerful deities, or even the subtle pressure from the Terrene Temple. None of these had ever made the Xia people bow their heads. The Xia people would always rather die standing than live kneeling. This world belonged to the Xia people. No one should even think about meddling. The Terrene Temple. I allow you to spread your faith, but you have to follow my rules. The demonic faction. If you don't follow the rules, then you can hide in the darkness forever. The moment you show your head, kill. All other outsiders, kill, kill, kill. The transcendence of the Xia people did not fear death, but at the same time, the Xia people would not let these transcendents down. Chapter 270. Alright, I'll go prepare the ingredients and concoct the concoction. The Purple Thunder Emperor smiled. He was very pleased to see this scene. If he saw that his descendants did not live up to expectations, he would feel that it was not worth it even if he wanted to do something for them. But if his descendants did not live up to expectations, no matter how much effort they put in, these ancestors would still feel happy. Also, you mentioned the matter of the great demon god's avatar. The Purple Thunder Emperor looked towards Palace Lord Chen. Palace Lord Chen immediately replied, reporting to Ancestor Purple Thunder, it's like this. He hurriedly explained, I've already mentioned this to Ancestor Yunhai. Ancestor Yunhai also said that the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God have such a plan. Even the faith of the entire mortal world is not worth it. Their target can only be Crimson Rock Mountain. Yes, It must be Crimson Rock Mountain. The Purple Thunder Emperor transmitted, however, even though the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God are world deities, they have no advantage in terms of strength when it comes to plotting against Crimson Rock Mountain. There are many people stronger than them in the deity world. However, the Great Demon God has prepared a deity avatar. Clearly, he is preparing to send a deity avatar. Deity avatars cannot enter Crimson Rock Mountain, so they should be attacking the Xia people. Why would they attack the Xia people? My guess is that the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God are planning to exterminate the Xia people and occupy the entire Xia people's world. Once they occupy the entire Xia people's world, Crimson Rock Mountain within the Xia people's world will be in their pocket. The two of them have worked together to make this place impregnable. Even if other deity experts send demigods down, they will not have a chance to enter Crimson Rock Mountain. Others cannot enter. Only the two of them can occupy it. They can send demigods in countless times over the years. After a long time, Crimson Rock Mountain will eventually fall into their hands. However, it is not so easy to occupy the Xia people's world. I feel that they have an even more powerful backup plan. This backup plan should be controlled by the Sorcerer God. This is also the reason why the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God are confident of occupying the Xia people's world, the Purple Thunder Emperor said with a voice projection. Palace Lord Chen nodded and transmitted his voice. That's what Ancestor Yunhai said. He said that the Sorcerer God is much weaker than the Great Demon God. If the Great Demon God cooperates with him, the Sorcerer God must have something to rely on. If the Great Demon God was willing to use his avatar, then they probably had something else to rely on. This time, I also saw a Spider Empress, and I even saw the Sorcerer God's sword. The beast race has hidden themselves so deeply. It's fine if they don't erupt, but once they do, they will definitely be formidable. Why didn't you tell me about this? The Purple Thunder Emperor asked. I can't be sure before the attack. We just destroyed the clone of the Great Demon God. Palace Lord Chen transmitted his voice. I only mentioned this matter to Ancestor Yunhai. Once it's confirmed, I will naturally report it to the other ancestors. Yes, this matter is very important. I will discuss it with the others and come up with a solution. The Purple Thunder Emperor frowned. After all, the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God were willing to pay such a heavy price. They probably had something to rely on. It would not be easy for the Xia people to break through. There should still be plenty of time. The Great Demon God's avatar has been destroyed. They should be lacking a main fighting force. Palace Lord Chen transmitted his voice. Yes, they should delay their plans. Such a big matter must be fully prepared before they make a move. However, we have to prepare immediately. The more prepared, the better. The Purple Thunder Emperor and the other deities of the Xia people were definitely not willing to watch as the Xia people were destroyed. He glanced at Dongbu Shuang, who was lying on the ground. Fortunately, this kid is here. Otherwise, I'm afraid they would only know about it when they make a move. By then, it would be too late to prepare. This also caused the Purple Thunder Emperor to have a very good impression of Dongbu Shuang, this descendant of the Xia people. Look after Dongbu Shuang. If his undying body can't hold on, use a pill to recover his life force. Try your best to delay. The Purple Thunder Emperor transmitted his voice. I will get the Temporal Temple to send the medicinal liquid as soon as possible. Yes, Palace Lord Chen replied. Pills that could recover one's life force were very expensive. If he could delay it for a few hours, it would cost nearly 1,000,000 kilograms of origin stones. However, in order to save Dongbu Shuang, he didn't even care about the price of a god equipment. Why would he care about this? Muddle-headed. His consciousness was dim. Suddenly, he felt pain all over his body. The pain seemed to be decreasing rapidly. As his consciousness gradually recovered, he recalled that he had been surrounded by Elder Ao Lan and the others. Although he had hidden in the mirage and had the protection of the green armored protector and the flowing gold armor, he had still been inflicted with a terrifying poison. That poison was truly painful. Afterwards, the Xia people broke through the array. Elder Ao Lan and the others had escaped, and he himself had lost consciousness after leaving the mirage. So bitter. As Dongbu Shuang regained his senses, he tasted the bitterness in his mouth. However, it was precisely this bitter medicinal liquid that was suppressing the mysterious poison within his body, reducing the pain by a lot. It had already reached a point where Dongbu Shuang could completely endure it. My body, what's wrong with my body? Why is everything? As Dongbu Shuang gradually sensed every part of his body, he immediately discovered that there was a huge problem with his body. That poison was still permeating the most basic particles of his body. This poison was already deeply rooted in his body. Although it was being suppressed by the medicinal liquid, it wasn't reduced at all. Furthermore, his Dantian's qi had also been infiltrated, making it impossible for him to cultivate transcendent dou qi. The transcendent dou qi within his Dantian's qi would probably decrease with every use. Where is this? Dongbu Shuang slowly opened his eyes and saw the muslin curtain of his bed. Snow Eagle. A voice rang out. Dongbu Shuang turned his head to look. Two people were currently standing beside the bed. They were Palace Lord Chen and Mountain Lord He. Dongbu Shuang hurriedly sat up. Although his entire body was in pain, it was nothing much. Palace Lord Chen, Mountain Lord He, thank you for saving my life. Dongbu Shuang said. Both Palace Lord Chen and Mountain Lord He felt their hearts ache. Let's not talk about this. Take this first. This is the 100 bitter restoration that the ancestor of the Xia people, the Purple Thunder Emperor, gave us. Palace Lord Chen passed a black gourd to Dongbu Shuang. This gourd has a small space within it. There's quite a lot of medicinal liquid inside, enough for you to drink for 200 years. Dongbu Shuang received the black gourd. I'm afraid you aren't too clear about your situation. I have to tell you. Palace Lord Chen furrowed his brows and hesitated. Please speak. Dongbu Shuang listened attentively. The voodoo poison you've been afflicted with is called the Six Ghosts Resentment Voodoo Poison. Palace Lord Chen said, this medicinal liquid can only temporarily suppress the voodoo poison. Moreover, as the medicinal liquid is consumed, the pain caused by the voodoo poison will recover. In other words, since you've just consumed the antidote, the pain you're feeling now will be the lightest pain you'll ever feel in the future. Dongbu Shuang nodded his head. He could already feel the medicinal liquids suppressing the poison in his body. As the medicinal liquid gradually decreased, the pain was slowly increasing. The more medicinal liquid you drink, the more the Six Ghosts Resentment Voodoo Poison will adapt to it. When you finish drinking this gourd, it will be the time of your death. Thus, you have to drink as little as possible. Palace Lord Chen said, in theory, you can live for 200 years. However, according to the records of the deity world, because of the unbearable pain, drinking the antidote caused some people to not live past 100 years. Dongbu Shuang fell silent. In theory, 200 years of lifespan. In reality, it might be even shorter. Your body and Dantian Qi have been poisoned. Your body and Dou Qi will no longer be able to cultivate. Palace Lord Chen said. Speaking of this, he felt terrible. Because if he couldn't cultivate, Dongbu Shuang would never be able to step into the demigod realm. He would only be able to remain a saint until his death. The pain from the voodoo poison will be felt day and night. It will be very difficult for you to calm your heart and focus on comprehending the nature of heaven and earth. Palace Lord Chen shook his head. These are all drawbacks. There's nothing we can do about it. Unable to cultivate. Comprehending the nature of heaven and earth was very difficult. Wasn't he a cripple? I'm sorry, Snow Eagle. There's nothing we can do about it. Palace Lord Chen said. Palace Lord Chen, there's no need to say such things. Dongbu Shuang said. I understand. The medicinal liquid in his hand was sent down from the deity world by the Purple Thunder Emperor. Since they had already gone to this extent, the Xia people had already done everything they could. At the very least, the Purple Thunder Emperor knew about this matter. Mortals can only live for 100 years. I've already lived for tens of years. If I can live for another 100 or 200 years, what's there to be unsatisfied about? Dongbu Shuang said. Alright, I want to go out for a walk. As he spoke, the golden armor on his body started to revolve as he reverted to his normal black robes. After which, he walked towards the door. He opened the door. Outside was a courtyard. At this moment, the warm sunlight shone down on his body, as well as the interior of the courtyard. In the courtyard, a lady dressed in a deep blue robe stood there. The sunlight shone through her hair, causing it to glow. How beautiful! Dongbu Shuang revealed a smile. Jingqiu. Dongbu Shuang called out. Jingqiu turned around when she heard the voice. She saw the smiling black-robed young man in front of her. Update complete. Chapter 271. Looking at the black-robed youth in front of her, Jingqiu couldn't help but recall the first time they met. At that time, they were both very young and had met each other in the Azure River County's Dragon Mountain Manor. At that time, they only nodded and smiled politely before returning to their respective courtyards. In the blink of an eye, dozens of years had passed. At that time, that reserved youth could only be considered an expert of the Azure River County. Now, he stood at an extremely high position in the entire Xia people. He could be said to be the most heaven-defying transcendent in the history of the Xia people. In one move, he destroyed the demonic faction headquarters and the great demon god's doppelganger. However, the sorcerer god and the great demon god's vengeance had severed his future. Senior brother Snow Eagle. Jingqiu walked over and held Dongbu Shuang's hand. Let's take a walk. Dongbu Shuang smiled. N. Jingqiu nodded lightly. The two walked side by side within the infernal palace. You already know? Dongbu Shuang asked with a smile. I know. When the Purple Thunder Emperor questioned all the demigods of the Xia people, I was also present. Jingqiu said. Furthermore, the palace Lord Chen did not keep this matter a secret. Not only the demigods, but the other transcendents of the Xia people also know about it. Dongbu Shuang looked at the majestic palaces and smiled. The palace Lord Chen did not do anything wrong. The demonic faction has only discovered one high priest. The other second and third priests are still a mystery. I'm afraid that one or two of the demigods of the Xia people are traitors. If that's the case, there's no need to keep this matter a secret. Furthermore, I was poisoned by the sorcerer god's saber. I'm afraid that the sorcerer god knows how powerful this poison is. Jingqiu's heart turned sour. Now that senior brother Snow Eagle had suffered such a great calamity, he would have to endure the pain of the hexing poison day and night, and he would no longer have any hope of cultivating. With such a blow. Senior brother Snow Eagle was actually so calm and concerned about the demonic faction and the sorcerer god. By the way, in order to cure me of the sorcerer god's sword poison, the Xia people must have paid a hefty price, right? Dongbu Shuang suddenly asked. Yes. Jingqiu nodded. This isn't a secret. All the demigods know about it. The price is huge, and it's equivalent to sending down a divine weapon. However, this was all borne by the ancestors of the Purple Thunder Emperor. It's not that I don't want to save you, senior martial brother. It's just that the poison you've been afflicted with is called Six Ghosts Grudge. It's a very terrifying voodoo poison. If you want to completely cure it, even the treasures of all 52 ancestors of the Xia people wouldn't be enough. I've done enough. Dongbu Shuang nodded. A divine artifact. How many divine weapons did the Xia people accumulate over the years? In front of us is the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world. Let's go in and take a look. Dongbu Shuang laughed. As he spoke, he flew alongside Jing Qiu towards the waterfall in front of them. Although he was unable to cultivate his physical strength and battle qi, the amount of battle qi he used would decrease by a portion. However, in reality, Dongbu Shuaying's strength did not decrease at all. That was because his strength mainly depended on his true meanings. It was because of his true meanings that he was able to create those miraculous things. Hua. As his body touched the waterfall, the space around him distorted. Dongbu Shuang felt his eyes light up. The scenery around him had already changed. In front of him was a vast space. There were mountains everywhere, and white clouds drifted about. I still remember the days when I cultivated with senior martial brother in the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world. Jing Qiu looked at her surroundings. It's just that because of the descent of the demons, there are very few people who come to this Scarlet Cloud Mountain world. Let's take a walk. Dongbu Shuang brought Jing Qiu along as they descended. Beside a huge lake that was as clear as a mirror, the two of them walked side by side, admiring the scenery of the surrounding mountains. As the two of them walked, they chatted about the things that happened during their cultivation days in the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world. The scenery of the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world is really beautiful. Dongbu Shuang suddenly exclaimed in admiration. He then sat down cross-legged on a patch of grass beside the lake and laughed. They said that after I was poisoned by the sorcerer god Saber, it became very difficult for me to cultivate. I do want to give it a try. As he spoke, he closed his eyes. Jing Qiu, who was sitting at the side, was also watching nervously. She had heard before that the six ghosts' resentment poison was extremely painful. It could even cause Dongbu Shuang, who had a strong will, to lose consciousness from the pain. Only by suppressing the poison with the antidote could the pain be alleviated. Extreme piercing. Dongbu Shuang closed his eyes and used his mental energy to sense the fluctuations of the heaven and earth energy around him. The true meaning of extreme piercing started to be displayed. One could vaguely see the space around him being penetrated. At the same time, Dongbu Shuang was still working hard to perfect it. He wanted to absorb more profound mysteries to perfect the true meaning of extreme piercing. The pain from the six ghosts' resentment poison that he had suppressed with his willpower was starting to affect him. It was like a person cultivating while someone was whipping him. How could he calm down and cultivate without being disturbed? One had to know that even with the suppression of the antidote, the pain from the six ghosts' resentment poison had already surpassed the pain of ordinary whippings. This pain was at the particle level. It would be fine if he didn't cultivate. However, if he tried to comprehend the heaven and earth energy, he would immediately be disturbed. Calm down, calm down, calm down. Dongbu Shuang tried his best to not be affected. However, he still had to divert his attention to suppress the pain. Because of this, the speed at which he comprehended the true meaning slowed down. As time passed, the antidote in his body was continuously being consumed, and the pain was continuously increasing. This required more attention to suppress the pain, which would affect his comprehension of the heaven and earth energy even more. Jing Qiu watched from the side. It had already been 4 hours, and Dongbu Shuang was still sitting cross-legged in cultivation. Senior Purple Thunder Emperor said that it would be hard for one to calm down and comprehend the heaven and earth energy under the influence of the poison. However, he only said that it would be hard, not impossible. If one's mental state was strong enough, he might be able to ignore the pain and continue cultivating. Jing Qiu was filled with anticipation. Suddenly, beads of perspiration appeared on the forehead of Dongbu Shuang, as his body trembled slightly. It is indeed difficult. Dongbu Shuang opened his eyes. How is it? Jing Qiu hurriedly helped Dongbu Shuang up. The pain is the lightest when I drink the antidote, and I can still cultivate. However, the efficiency is lower than before. After an hour, the pain becomes more intense. In fact, it is hard for me to calm down. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. I have endured for so long. My body can no longer suppress the pain of the poison. At this moment, he stopped cultivating and used all his strength to suppress the pain. Dongbu Shuaying's body stopped trembling. However, his face was slightly pale. Occasionally, the sweat on his body would be dispelled by Dongbu Shuaying's true meaning of stars. There is only an hour in a day. Dongbu Shuang laughed. That's not bad. Senior Snow Eagle, your mental state is much stronger. Perhaps you can cultivate for a longer period of time. Jing Qiu said. Right. The stronger one's mental state is, the less affected by the pain. Dongbu Shuang added. However, he didn't tell Jing Qiu. Although he could cultivate for an hour in a day, the efficiency of that hour was much lower than before. The pain of the voodoo poison was much greater than expected. The two of them continued walking side by side. After walking for another 2 hours, even though Dongbu Shuang was suppressing the pain with all his heart, his body was still trembling uncontrollably. He could no longer control it. It was simply too painful. Let me sit for a while. Dongbu Shuang sat on a huge rock by the side. He lowered his head and tried his best to endure the pain, trying to get used to it. Because in the days to come, he would have to endure the pain day and night. Dongbu Shuaying's body was trembling. His face was getting paler and paler. He couldn't even focus on controlling the true meaning of stars to dispel the sweat. Senior Snow Eagle. Jing Qiu looked at him nervously. Was this still the Senior Snow Eagle from her memories? Back then, the young Senior Snow Eagle was also filled with boundless sharpness and killed Xiang Pangyun. After falling into the Black Wind Abyss, he survived and became the youngest transcendent in the history of the Xia people. During the transcendent battle of life and death, he was incomparably dazzling. In the following years, he became even more dazzling and could be said to have illuminated an entire era. The demon lair was destroyed by him. Out of the 5 demon generals, 4 died, and 1 struggled at death's door. The demonic faction headquarters was discovered and breached for the first time in the history of the Xia people. The clone of the great demon god was also destroyed. The one who created all of this was the peerless transcendent that even Mountain Lord He, Elder Ao Lan, and Si Kong Yang, these peak demigods, were in awe. But now, looking at the tormented Dongbu Shuang, Jing Qiu's heart ached. Let's go back. Dongbu Shuaying's lips were pale and his face was covered in sweat. He knew that he couldn't hold on any longer. It was better for him to return to his residence. Jing Qiu wanted to hold Dongbu Shuaying's hand, but Dongbu Shuaying moved aside and smiled, it's all sweat. As he said this, Dongbu Shuaying's face became even paler. Jing Qiu's eyes reddened. Senior brother Snow Eagle, let's get married. Jing Qiu suddenly said. Dongbu Shuang was stunned. At this moment, his mind was filled with a roar, and even the pain seemed to have disappeared. Don't you know that I only have 1 to 200 years to live? Maybe I won't even be able to live for 100 years. Dongbu Shuang looked at Jing Qiu. Then from now on, you have to accompany me. We'll always be together. We'll travel the world, to the ends of the earth, to the ends of the earth, to see everything in my Xia people's world. Jing Qiu looked at him. Then I'll have to rely on you to take care of this sickly person. Dongbu Shuang laughed. Jing Qiu's eyes became slightly misty. She smiled, all right. Then you have to listen to me. I'll listen to you. Dongbu Shuang nodded. The two held hands and flew side by side towards the exit of the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world. Faint voices could be heard. When are we getting married? Dongbu Shuang asked. The day after tomorrow. All right, I'll listen to you. Chapter 272. The two returned to Dongbu Shuaying's original residence. Palace Lord Chen and Mountain Lord He were already waiting there. Snow Eagle, are you all right? Palace Lord Chen asked worriedly when he saw Dongbu Shui Ying's pale and sweaty face. I'm fine. In theory, I should be able to hold on for an entire day. It's still early. Shuang laughed. Previously, after Palace Head Chen had given him the bottle gourd of antidote, he had quickly sent a list to Shuang, detailing the theoretical limit of time to drink the antidote. According to this limit, Shuang would be able to live for 200 years. For the first 9 months, he could only drink the antidote once a day, one portion at a time. Right now, it had only been 6 hours since Dongbu Shuang drank the antidote. There was still a long way to go before the end of the day. According to the records of the deity world, many people who were afflicted with the 6 ghosts' resentment would drink the antidote uncontrollably under the torment of pain. Every time, they would drink the antidote a little earlier. As a result, they would drink the antidote faster, and it was common for them to not live up to 100 years. Palace Lord Chen did not try to persuade him. He understood that it was better to hold on for as long as possible. Even if the pain was unimaginable, it was still a good thing. Remember, the moment you lose consciousness, let the green-armored protector feed you the antidote. Palace Lord Chen said, after you lose consciousness, the moment your undying body's recovery speed cannot match the destructive power of the 6 ghosts' resentment, I'm afraid you will die within 2 hours. Understood. I will ask Senior War Soldier for help later. Dongbu Shuang said. The green-armored protector transformed into a bracelet on his wrist, allowing him to know Dongbu Shuaying's situation at all times. As for others, including his loved ones, they could not watch over Dongbu Shuaying at all times. Oh right, Palace Lord Chen, Mountain Lord He. Dongbu Shuaying smiled. Jing Qiu and I are preparing to get married the day after tomorrow. Palace Lord Chen and Mountain Lord He looked at the 2 people in front of them in astonishment. Jing Qiu hugged Dongbu Shuaying's arm and smiled. All right. You two are really fast, haha. Palace Lord Chen laughed. Great news, great news. It's actually the day after tomorrow. But it's good that it's fast. When the time comes, we'll have to go congratulate them. I'll have to think of what kind of gift to give them. Mountain Lord He laughed from the side. Right, is it at Snowrock Castle? Yes. Dongbu Shuang nodded. Jing Qiu and I have already thought it through. We will return to Snowrock Castle tomorrow. Everything will be simple, so there is no need to make too much noise. I understand, said Palace Lord Chen immediately. All right, hurry up and get some rest. If there's anything, just send me a message. Yes. In terms of profundity, he is probably comparable to the top 10 demigods. Do you think a sky realm transcendent like you has the qualifications to call him a cripple? I only feel that it's a pity. How would I dare to look down on him? The transcendents of the Xia people all over the world were discussing amongst themselves. Some were regretful, some were angry, and some were sad. However, there were also some who had dark thoughts. Isn't this Dongbu Shuang very close to Mage Jing Qiu? Now that he is a cripple, he won't be able to live for long. I'm afraid that Mage Jing Qiu will have to part ways with him. When he dies, I might still be able to pursue Mage Jing Qiu. As the most beautiful Mage Jing Qiu amongst the transcendents, many transcendents naturally wanted to pursue her. It was just that in the past, Dongbu Shuang and Jing Qiu were very close, causing other transcendents to not be able to see any hope. Now, however, these transcendents could not help but see hope. However, not long after, a piece of news spread. Dongbu Shuang and Mage Jing Qiu will be getting married the day after tomorrow, at Snowrock Castle. This piece of news immediately caused the delusional transcendents to shatter their hopes. After all, the moment they married, even if Dongbu Shuang died, a transcendent's temperament would not allow her to marry a second time. There had never been a case of a transcendent marrying a second time in history. In fact, as transcendents, many transcendent women did not even marry for their entire lives. In the major transcendent world, the oceanic forest world, the golden-robed illusion and the gigantic skull illusion met once again. Your news is really fast. It seems that there are still members of your demonic faction within the Xia people, the golden-robed illusion said. Among the Xia people, my news network is much better than yours. The great demon god said, I've infiltrated the Xia people for a very, very long time. Oh right, do you think that this piece of news might be fake? There's no need to doubt it. The golden-robed illusion said, I've been using this sword for a very long time, and it contains the 6 ghosts' resentment hex poison. Who would have thought that an ancestor of the Xia people would actually be recruited into the Bloodshed God Palace? Furthermore, he is proficient in the Tao of medicine and can easily identify hex poisons. Identification was the most important step in detoxification. The sorcerer god originally thought that the ancestors of the Xia people would not be able to identify it. After all, there were too many hex poisons in the deity world, and the 6 ghosts' resentment was just one of them. But it's nothing to worry about. They can't descend with their true bodies, so they can only rely on external medicines. The 100 bitter restoration is the lowest grade of antidote, but the price of sending it down is comparable to sending a deity weapon. To the group of weak ancestor deities of the Xia clan, sending this medicine over was already a huge price they had to pay. It's impossible for them to save Dongbua Shuang, the sorcerer god said. This Dongbua Shuang is also nothing to worry about. He'll probably live for another 100 or 200 years at most. Furthermore, the 6 ghosts' resentment hex poison torments him day and night, preventing him from cultivating. There's no need to worry about him anymore. Are we not going to continue? The great demon god asked. Firstly, the Xia people might be prepared for this, so the chances of success will be much lower if we attack again. This Dongbua Shuang can easily hide in the mirage or the shadow world, so killing him will be very difficult. Secondly, we've already paid a huge price this time. If we attack again, I'm afraid we'll have to pay an even higher price. It's not worth paying such a huge price just to deal with an insignificant transcendent with a high chance of failure, the sorcerer god said. Just the 12 spirit formations that he had set up in a single breath were already extremely precious. That was because every single array was laid down quickly, and they were all made up of movable array plates. To be able to lay down arrays as powerful as the Black Wind Deity Palace within a breath's time, the price was extremely high. The reason the Black Wind Deity Palace had not been broken through for so many years was because all the transcendents had relied on their own strength to break through. It wasn't that the Xia people couldn't break through even with the entire clan's strength. The Dragon Mountain Emperor and other deities had entered previously precisely because the true treasures of the Black Wind ancestor had not been left in the Black Wind Deity Palace. The Xia people had not used force, but had instead followed the rules set by the Black Wind ancestor and relied on their own strength to break through. This time, however, they had used the entire clan's strength and the Maishan Master's help. Furthermore, they had laid down the arrays in an instant. How high was the price? Furthermore, the torn scroll had been added to the sorcerer god's saber. Without it, the sorcerer god's saber would not be able to suppress the space within the mirage. How terrifying was the price of such a scroll? The price was already so high the first time. If they attacked again, the price would be even higher. Furthermore, the Xia people were prepared, so they might still fail. Furthermore, it was not worth it for the current Dongbua Shuang. Right, the ancestor of the Xia people, the Purple Thunder Emperor, has been absorbed into the Bloodshed God Palace. Aren't you afraid of trouble? The great demon god suddenly said. The Bloodshed God Palace. Just thinking about it makes me shudder. That's a terrifying power. The Purple Thunder Emperor might be able to make his way up in the Bloodshed God Palace in the future. As an overlord, I'm not afraid of those who are thousands of times more powerful than him. Furthermore, for the sake of Crimson Rock Mountain, I'll kill whoever blocks my way. The sorcerer god's eyes were filled with an ominous glint. I think you're more suited to join our dark abyss. The great demon god laughed. Humph humph. The sorcerer god sneered twice before his figure disappeared. The illusory head of the great demon god also disappeared. Although he only managed to maintain his composure for 8 hours, the other 16 hours were spent lying on the bed in excruciating pain. He put away the black gourd floating beside him and stood up. Creak. The door opened. He saw a beautiful woman sitting in the courtyard outside. Jing Qiu had been waiting for him for a long time. Senior apprentice brother Snow Eagle. Jing Qiu hurriedly ran over. Her bright eyes were filled with concern. How are you? It wasn't easy for you to endure this day, right? It's all right. At least you didn't faint. Dongbo Shuang smiled. Let's go. We'll bid farewell to Palace Lord Chen. It's about time to return. Just as he finished speaking, 2 figures instantly appeared. They were Palace Lord Chen and Mountain Lord He. Ha, Snow Eagle, we've been waiting for you. Palace Lord Chen smiled. The entire infernal world was under his control. He knew that Dongbo Shuang had just woken up. Palace Lord Chen, Mountain Lord He. Dongbo Shuang smiled. I'm also here to bid farewell. Oh right, when I killed High Priest Shiyun in the demonic faction headquarters, I obtained quite a few treasures. I never had the chance to give them to you. When I was surrounded, I used a few life-saving treasures and obtained this protective armor. The rest are all here. Dongbo Shuang threw a storage ring over. This is the reward for breaching the demonic faction headquarters and killing the doppelganger of the great demon god. These are also your spoils of war. Palace Lord Chen received the ring and handed it over. Palace Lord Chen, you've already paid a huge price to save me. The demonic faction headquarters has a very deep foundation. There are all sorts of powerful arrays, special treasures, and even a large number of demigod weapons. But you should know that I can't even cultivate transcendent qi. What use do I have for these? In fact, without transcendent qi, the power of this armor is greatly reduced. Dongbo Shuang said. These treasures are still with the Xia people. They are more useful. Moreover, the sorcerer god and the great demon god haven't given up yet. The more treasures we have, the more prepared the Xia people will be. In my hands, it's a waste. As for the treasures we normally use, I still have more than 2 million contribution points. It's more than enough. Choose something that's useful to you or something that's useful to Jing Qiu. Mountain Lord, he said. Dongbo Shuang and Jing Qiu looked at each other. No need. 2 million contribution points are more than enough. Moreover, I believe that Palace Lord Chen has already guessed that I obtained the treasures left behind by Ancestor Black Wind. When the time comes, I can use these treasures to exchange for some resources. It's more than enough for Jing Qiu. Dongbo Shuang said. Alright. Palace Lord Chen hesitated for a moment, but he didn't refuse. Indeed. With the current grim situation, the Xia people really needed these treasures. I'm afraid that the sorcerer god and the great demon god haven't given up yet. We, the Xia people, should take the initiative. When the time comes, our army will move out, and I will walk the mirage to investigate. Dongbo Shuang said. Ha, Snow Eagle, you don't have to worry about this. Palace Lord Chen said, after suffering once, existences like the sorcerer god and the great demon god will definitely not give you any chance. Alright, don't be anxious. If I really need your help, I will definitely ask for your help. The most important thing right now is to prepare for your wedding tomorrow. Dongbo Shuang smiled, alright. Palace Lord Chen and Mountain Lord he sighed inwardly. The two of them originally thought that after suffering such a blow, Dongbo Shuiying's mentality would definitely be affected. However, they saw that Dongbo Shuiying wasn't the slightest bit discouraged or upset. Instead, his thoughts were still on the Xia people. This caused them to feel very pained. They, the Xia people, were all transcendents with unparalleled talent. Why did they end up like this? Snow Eagle, this is a treasure. Mountain Lord, he waved his hand and took out a silver-white sphere with a diameter of 1 meter. After you refine it, you will be able to easily control it. This is... Dongbu Shuang was puzzled. This sphere originally contained a powerful array plate. As long as it is activated, it will be able to completely shatter the surrounding space within 100 li. Mountain Lord, he explained, this is a treasure that specializes in restraining spatial seals. However, activating the array plate requires transcendent magic power. Thus, I modified it and added an energy source inside. Through this energy source, you only need to slightly activate your spiritual energy. With it, the surrounding space within 100 li will shatter. Your true meaning of piercing will be able to easily dodge the changes. If the sorcerer god's saber wants to deal with you, it will be very hard for it to touch you. Dongbu Shuang sighed in surprise. Restraining spatial seals. At the very least, it wasn't among the treasures of the demonic faction. The foundation of the Xia people was indeed extraordinary. However, Dongbu Shuang understood how precious it was. I'll bring it. Dongbu Shuang hesitated. Don't hesitate. Take it. Actually, we guessed that the sorcerer god and the great demon god wouldn't pay a huge price to deal with you. However, it's still good to bring it along. If a war breaks out in the future and we need it, you can just give it to the Xia people. Palace Lord Qin said. Dongbu Shuang nodded. Snow Eagle, do you and Jing Qiu have any requests? Palace Lord Qin asked. No. Dongbu Shuang opened his mouth and hesitated. How about this, my Xia people have the transcendent 7-petaled flower. Prepare 5 for me. A legend ranker's body could undergo transcendence and become a pseudo-transcendent. A pseudo-transcendent's lifespan was 800 years. However, this was very dangerous, and the mortality rate was very high. Just like his mother, Mo Yang Yu's family, the Mo Yang clan head, was a pseudo-transcendent. There were quite a lot of pseudo-transcendents. On average, there would be tens of them in a province. Actually, the demonification and apotheosis of some demonic gods was also a form of transcendence, just that it was more dangerous. Although it was dangerous, the price was relatively low. A legend ranker only needed to pay a certain price. For example, if they were willing to give up a portion of their freedom, the temple of the earth god would be willing to help them undergo transcendence. For example, the Mo Yang clan head could afford to pay the price to undergo transcendence. As for the transcendent 7-petaled flower, it was a formula passed down by the ancestors of the Xia people. It was a special medicine that took the form of a flower and could be safely undergone transcendence. Actually, the cost was relatively low. However, the Xia people sold it to transcendence for 100,000 kilograms of origin stones per set. This was a very ruthless price. One must know that even the Mo Yang clan could afford to pay for an ordinary transcendence. However, under normal circumstances, only a demigod would be willing to pay for a transcendent 7-petaled flower. If my family members find it hard to become transcendents, they can also use this transcendent 7-petaled flower. Dongbu Shuang said. However, the prerequisite for using it was to become a legend ranker. I'll give you 5. Palace Lord Qin said. Selling it for 100,000 kilograms of origin stones per set, the cost was actually around 10,000 kilograms of origin stones. This was also the method that the Xia people used to accumulate origin stones. I still have a lot of contribution points. Dongbu Shuang said. Then it's settled. 5 transcendent 7-petaled flowers. Don't decline. Palace Lord Qin said. That's fine too. Palace Lord Qin, Mountain Lord He, I won't stay any longer. I'll take my leave now. Dongbu Shuang said. We'll go congratulate you tomorrow. Palace Lord Qin and Mountain Lord He sent the two off with their gazes. Lowering his head to look at the storage ring in his hand, Palace Lord Chen frowned. His eyebrows were like sharp blades. How annoying. Dongbo Shuiying's innate talent is unfathomably high. Such a proud son of heaven, yet he hasn't even cultivated for 100 years. He's actually finished just like that, becoming a cripple. It was like a dazzling star, releasing a dazzling radiance that streaked across the sky. However, it soon dimmed and fell. Everyone has their own fate. Mountain Lord, he said. At least the Snow Eagle's life is glorious enough. Hua. Using the true meaning of extreme piercing, he tore open a spatial tunnel and arrived above Snow Rock Castle. Looking down, it was currently the beginning of spring. Looking down, the entire mountain was covered in white snow. Lady Jing Qiu, I knew that the two of you would definitely get married. However, I thought that your transcendence would drag it out for a long time, to the point where I wouldn't be able to see it even if I closed my eyes. At noon, Mo Yang Yu was very happy at the dining table. Snow Eagle, Qing Shi is rushing back with his girlfriend. He should be here by evening. Qing Shi too, he's also dragging it out. This time, I'll have to talk to Qing Shi about it. He can't always be focused on cultivating magic. He needs to get married first. Dongbo Shuang smiled. Maybe by getting married and changing his mood, that brat Qing Shi will be able to step into the transcendent realm. I'm full. Let's go out for a walk. Dongbo Shuang stood up. Lady Jing Qiu, come, accompany me for a chat. Mo Yang Yu was very happy today. Stop messing around and wasting their time. Dongbo frowned from the side. It's fine. Jing Qiu smiled. Up until now, Dongbo Shuang hadn't told his parents about this matter. He didn't intend to. He believed that as time passed, his parents would gradually find out. Walking alone in the familiar castle. The servants that passed by were all incomparably respectful. Towards this dazzling existence of the Dongbo clan, they were all extremely excited. It was just that when he was young, almost all the servants in the clan were no longer around. After all, if the servants were still alive, they would be over 100 years old. In reality, only those who had reached the star realm could live to over 100 years old. Clearly, the group of old servants from back then were too few to reach the star realm. Rumble, the closed door of the training field was opened by Dongbo Shuang. Looking at the cleared snow on the training field, Dongbo Shuang revealed a smile. A long time ago, when he was young, he would crazily practice his spear here every single day. Dongbo Shuang waved his hand, and a spear that looked like a flowing cloud of fire appeared in his hand. He then began to practice his spear to his heart's content. The spear was like a swimming dragon, moving according to his will. When it lashed out, it was like thunder. When it stabbed, it was like a bolt of lightning. Even though the pain from the hexing poison in his body was slowly increasing, Dongbo Shuiying's thoughts were all on his spear techniques. It wasn't like comprehending a true meaning, which required him to expend all his effort to deduce it. At this moment, he didn't have any other thoughts. Even his mind was empty. He was only displaying his spear techniques to his heart's content. There was only the purest joy in his heart. It was precisely because he truly loved spear techniques that Dongbo Shuiying could have such shocking achievements in his youth. He had even grasped the true meaning of extreme piercing, true meaning of mirage, true meaning of star, but for some unknown reason, ever since he grasped hold of the 3 embryonic forms of grade 2 true meanings, Dongbo Shuiying relied more on his true meanings. He would deduce and perfect his true meanings. At this moment, he was like a child, purely practicing his spear techniques because he loved it. He didn't need to think about any true meanings. He was purely practicing his spear techniques with a pure heart. Because he loved it, he was obsessed with it. Chapter 274. Jing Qiu and Mo Yang Yu chatted for a long time. The sky gradually darkened, But Mo Yang Yu was still very happy as she grabbed Jing Qiu, her daughter-in-law. She was really too happy today. In the end, Jing Qiu took the initiative to find an excuse to leave and go find Dongbu Shuang. According to her calculations, it had already been 8 hours since they left the infernal palace. Senior Snow Eagle probably won't be able to hold on much longer. Jing Qiu sensed something and discovered Dongbu Shuaying's aura in the training grounds of Snow Rock Castle. This made her very surprised. Is Senior Snow Eagle still practicing his spear? She hurried over. Shua! In a flash, he was already at the entrance of the training field. At this moment, Dongbu Shuaying's movements were not considered fast, but the power of his spear was vast and mighty. Rumble, the power of his spear was controlled to a radius of 10 meters, but within that radius, cracks could be seen. Occasionally, the spear would turn into thousands of afterimages, and the spear would even cause gravity to distort the space. In short, the radius of 10 meters was a zone of destruction. It has already been 8 hours, and Senior Snow Eagle is still able to persist in practicing his spear. Isn't he in pain? Jing Qiu did not dare to believe it. Yesterday, he was only barely able to control the pain. Jing Qiu watched from the side, not disturbing him. 1 hour, 2 hours, the sky gradually darkened. Brother, brother. Qing Shi's shout could be heard throughout half of Snow Rock Castle. Very quickly, Qing Shi arrived at the training grounds. After so many years, he had matured a lot. However, because he had become a legend mage, he still looked young, and his eyes were even more mesmerizing. Dongbu Shuang had once lamented that his brother could rely on his looks to make a living. Brother, tomorrow is the wedding day, yet you are still practicing your spear arts. Why don't you spend more time with Sister Jing Qiu? Ah, I should call her sister-in-law now. Qing Shi smiled as he walked in. Don't disturb your brother for now. Jing Qiu said. Oh. Qing Shi hurriedly replied. Jing Qiu continued to watch. She was very surprised, extremely surprised. Yesterday, he only lasted for 8 hours before he had to return to his room. Today, he was actually still practicing his spear arts. The pain was so intense that it was hard for him to think clearly. But at this moment, he didn't need to think. He was purely following the instinct in his heart to display his spear art. Faster, faster, faster. It's too slow. Faster is better. Dongbu Shuaying's spear split into thousands of spears and stabbed forward crazily. Every strike was infused with extreme piercing. However, at this moment, extreme piercing had already started to absorb some of the profound mysteries of earth, fire, water, and wind. There was only one goal, to increase the speed of this move. Boom, boom, boom. The power is too weak, too weak. It has to be stronger and fiercer. Dongbu Shuaying's spear technique changed. Both of his hands stabbed out furiously as he exerted his full strength. At the same time, his spear technique utilized the true meaning of star, as well as the true meaning of extreme piercing. The spear swept out, seemingly splitting the world into two. The spear danced in the air like a dragon. As he was completely immersed in his spear art, even the pain he was feeling seemed to have lessened significantly. However, as time passed, the pain grew stronger and stronger, and eventually, Dongbu Shuang was forced to stop. Huff, huff, huff. Dongbu Shuaying's forehead was filled with sweat. When he saw Qing Shi at the door and his little brother, Dongbu Shuang could not help but smile. Qing Shi is back. Brother. Qing Shi immediately ran over. Brother, you seem to be in a good mood. Tomorrow is your wedding, and now you are practicing your spear art. Just now, someone came to call for dinner. Let's eat together. Not tonight. Dongbu Shuang laughed. I still have some matters to discuss with Jing Qiu. Oh, then I shall not disturb the two of you. Qing Shi snickered. Dongbu Shuang nodded and walked towards Jing Qiu. He held her hand and left. Soon, the two of them entered the house. The door closed. Dongbo Shuiying's face instantly turned pale, and sweat started to form. He grinned. So close, I almost exposed myself in front of Qingshi. Senior Snow Eagle, you've been practicing for 10 hours. Jing Qiu was shocked. It's much better than yesterday. Because I'm practicing my spear art. Dongbo Shuiying replied. Practicing spear art? Jing Qiu was shocked. Practicing spear art is different from comprehending the nature of heaven and earth. It's different from you mages comprehending spells. Dongbo Shuiying said. Comprehending the nature of heaven and earth, comprehending the true meaning, and all sorts of profound mysteries have to be deduced. Some still need to be tested and perfected. The first stage, second stage, third stage, and even condensing the true deity heart. It's even more complicated for you mages to comprehend the spell models, and you need to spend a lot of effort to do so. Amen, Jing Qiu nodded. The nature of heaven and earth was complicated, and only transcendents had powerful souls. Mortals would find it hard to comprehend it. It would already be amazing if they could barely reach the realm of myriad existences. When practicing spear art, I only need to pursue perfection in my spear art. I don't need to spend too much effort to deduce the true meaning. I only need to improve my spear art. Dongbo Shuiying said. As for the true meaning, it's just a side effect of pursuing the spear art. Senior Snow Eagle, what do you mean? Jing Qiu didn't understand. Not cultivating the true meaning, but the spear art? The improvement of the spear art is the improvement of the realm. It doesn't contradict the improvement of the true meaning. Dongbo Shuiying said. In reality, today's spear training had shaken Dongbo Shuiying greatly. In the past, he had never been tortured by pain, so he didn't feel anything. But this time, under the torture of pain, he wasn't able to spend too much effort to comprehend the true meaning or anything else. But as a result, Dongbo Shuiying became even purer and more unaffected in his pursuit of spear arts. In the past, he had also pursued spear arts. But every time he improved, he would ponder, is this the right way? He could instantly consider countless problems, and rapidly perfect his spear arts, choosing a better path for himself. But in reality, was this path really good? But this time, he didn't have the ability to think too much and ponder over the true meaning. He could only rely on his instincts. I actually combined the true meaning of star and the true meaning of extreme piercing together. Dongbo Shuiying was shocked. In the past, I definitely wouldn't have allowed these two true meanings to be fused together. This was simply too reckless. But this time, I actually did it. Furthermore, it seems like the power of my spear arts has increased by a little. Maybe this is a different path. Dongbo Shuiying pondered. Who cares? I only have 100 to 200 years of lifespan left. What's the point of being overcautious? Since it's spear training, I should let myself be happy. As for the true meaning and whatnot, it's just a side effect. Dongbo Shuiying laughed. Back then, when he was in the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world, he didn't have any predecessors to guide him. He purely followed his heart. Even when he was reprimanded by faction head Si Kong Yang, he still persevered and eventually grasped the embryonic form of the true meaning of extreme piercing. That's how it should be. Dongbo Shuiying didn't hesitate at all. Ever since I grasped hold of 3 different grade 2 true meanings, I've been blinded by their power. I've been focused on making them stronger. Dongbo Shuiying sighed. But I've forgotten that what I've been pursuing in the past has always been spear arts. True meanings are meant for spear arts. Spear arts are everything. As for what true meanings I've comprehended, that's up to me. As long as my spear arts become stronger, I'll continue to improve. This couldn't be blamed on Dongbo Shuiying. The true meaning of extreme piercing, true meaning of mirage, and true meaning of star were simply too powerful. They made Dongbo Shuiying feel that he was omnipotent. He even felt that there was no longer anyone in the mortal world who could threaten his life. It was this encirclement that had given him a wake-up call. It had awakened him, allowing him to remember that what he had been pursuing in the past was spear arts. Actually, all these years, whether it was to deal with the demon bases or to explore the land and sea, he had never stopped to think about it. There's no need to consider too much when pursuing spear arts. That way, the burden on my heart will be smaller. I can also cultivate for 10 to 12 hours a day. As time passes, I'll get used to the pain. I can even increase the amount of time I can cultivate. Dongbu Shuang nodded slightly. Even though he had been poisoned, he was still very happy to be able to practice his spear arts every day. It was as if the pain he felt during his training had been reduced. Being immersed in the world of spear arts was truly mesmerizing. The next morning, Snow Rock Castle was already decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Since morning, transcendents had been arriving one after another. There were even huge ships that had arrived. The people on these ships were all transcendents from all over the world. They were all here to congratulate the legendary Dongbu Shuang. Chapter 275. The spacious ship tore open a spatial rift and flew into the clouds. Some of the transcendents looked down and saw the Snow Rock Castle decorated with lanterns and colored banners. We've arrived at Snow Rock Castle. I still remember watching Brother Dongbu's transcendent battle of life and death 50 years ago. At that time, I knew that Brother Dongbu's future was extraordinary. Just as I guessed, he had cultivated for less than 100 years and was already much stronger than the Eternal Wind Knight. Unfortunately, the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God plotted to take revenge, destroying the most heaven-defying transcendence in the history of our Xia people. Just thinking about it makes my heart ache. Today is a joyous occasion for Dongbu Shuang. Let's not talk about this anymore. Right, it's a joyous occasion. Let's not talk about anything else. The ship slowly descended. A beast-man lion man walked down first, followed by a group of transcendents. Brother Tanshi. The red-robed Dongbu Shuang and his wife, Jing Qiu, came forward to welcome them. And the transcendents of the Sea Deity Palace. Brother Dongbu. Tanshi smiled. Congratulations, congratulations. You've plucked the most beautiful flower of our Xia people. You don't know how many transcendents are secretly gnashing their teeth. Ha, no problem. Let them drink a few more cups to drown their sorrows. Dongbu Shuang joked. Right, I haven't congratulated Brother Tanshi for stepping into the demigod realm. I've also just broken through. The Palace Lord did not allow me to participate in the attack on the demonic faction headquarters. It's a pity that I missed such a grand occasion. Tanshi replied. Left Qiu Knight Tanshi had just broken through and was currently consolidating his foundation. As a newly advanced demigod knight, he would not be of much help. Palace Lord Chen also did not allow him to participate in the battle. After all, Qi Qiu Bai and Tanshi were the most outstanding transcendents of their generation. Other transcendents have arrived. I'll go and welcome them first. Everyone, please come in and have a seat. Dongbu Shuang said with Jing Qiu accompanying him with a smile. All right. The group of transcendents from the Sea Deity Palace entered. Dongbu Shuang brought his wife to welcome the other group of transcendents. A transcendent's wedding did not have as many rules as a mortal's. Some transcendents could not even be bothered to hold a ceremony. After all, they had lived for a long time and were very carefree. Dongbu Shuang and Jing Qiu also kept things simple. The two of them went to have a few drinks with their friends and guests. It was also an opportunity to tell everyone that they were officially husband and wife from now on. Transcendence. Qi Qiu Bai immediately stood up. Although he could not hide it. Qiu Bai's expression. Qiu Qi Bai immediately stood up. Now that he was so dazzling, yet he had become a cripple, and even had a limited lifespan, Shui felt regretful. Even so, Shui secretly thought, if she could marry him, even if it was only for 100 or 200 years, it would not be bad to become the wife of such an important figure in the history of the Xia people. Unfortunately, from the start to the end, Dongbu Shuang had no feelings for her. The person he liked was junior sister Jingqiu. He accompanied the group of transcendents, drinking and chatting. The majority of the demigods of the Xia people only sent their qi doppelgangers, magic doppelgangers, over. After all, their main bodies needed to be stationed in various places. Currently, the entire Xia people's world was not as peaceful as it seemed on the surface. The turbulence in the dark surpassed many eras in history. The Xia people had always been on guard against the sorcerer god and the great demon god. The drinking ended and the people dispersed. In the afternoon, the transcendents began to leave one by one. In order to maintain his good condition, Dongbu Shuang drank an extra dose of the antidote. Jingqiu was still a little reluctant, but Dongbu Shuang felt that the day of the wedding was an important day for him and Jingqiu. If he were to appear in front of his friends with a pale face and drenched in sweat, how embarrassing would that be? The number of transcendents in the Snow Rock Castle decreased. Palace Lord Chen also spoke a few words with Dongbu Shuang before leaving. Snow Eagle. The last to leave was Chao Qing. Chao Qing walked over. Vice Abbot Chao. Dongbu Shuang hurriedly greeted. You know of Crimson Rock Mountain, right? Chao Qing suddenly asked. Yes. Dongbu Shuang nodded. I will enter Crimson Rock Mountain in a few days. Chao Qing said. I'm old, and managed to condense a true deity heart before my lifespan. That's why I'm going to Crimson Rock Mountain to gamble. Although the chances are slim, it's better to give it a try. Who knows, I might even become a god. Ha ha ha, actually, this matter of mine is nothing much. I'm just going to try my luck. As for you, Snow Eagle, I'm actually quite pained. Dongbu Shuang felt warmth in his heart. Actually, Chao Qing had always paid close attention to him. Perhaps it was because he was old, and loved the younger generation more. Even when Si Kong Yang was disappointed in him, Chao Qing was still worried that he would not be able to recover from his setback. With my average talent, being able to live to the end of my lifespan, I was able to condense a true deity heart before my lifespan. But Snow Eagle, with your heaven-defying talent, you haven't even cultivated for 100 years, yet you ended up like this. Chao Qing shook his head. He was truly pained. Dongbu Shuang had only cultivated for close to 80 years. Compared to the long lifespans of transcendence, he was just a child. Everyone has their own fate. There's no need to blame the heavens. Dongbu Shuang said. In the previous battle with the demons, many transcendents of the Xia people died in battle. But at least I'm still alive. I'm already very fortunate to be able to live with my wife for 100 years. Amongst the mortals, how many can have such a blissful life? It can be said that I've already surpassed trillions of mortals. Chao Qing nodded. Snow Eagle, I've always admired your state of mind. If I were your age, I would have long gone crazy after suffering such a huge setback. Right, does that 6 ghosts resentment voodoo poison affect your cultivation? Chao Qing asked. It's very difficult. Dongbu Shuang nodded. Comprehending true intent requires all of one's mental strength. Because of the voodoo poison's influence, it's almost impossible to comprehend true intent. Fortunately, I can still practice my spear arts. There were disadvantages and advantages. The disadvantage was, when practicing spear arts, one might walk on a fork. After all, one did not have enough mental strength to judge whether it was right or wrong. The advantage was that one could disregard all influences and even disregard one's true intent. One could only focus on one thing, to make one's spear art stronger. It didn't matter if one's true intent was affected. As long as one's spear arts improved and became stronger. That was enough. After all, it was hard for him to focus on cultivating his true intent when he was in intense pain. With a wife to accompany me and something I like to do, not bad. Chao Qing nodded. All right, this old man is leaving. Let's say our last farewell today. Haha, if this old man can really become a god and come out of Crimson Rock Mountain alive, we might meet again. I wish you success, Elder Chao, Dongbua Shuang said. Hee, even I know that the chances are slim. But to be able to experience Crimson Rock Mountain before I die, this old man's blood really starts to boil. Chao Qing laughed, then transformed into a streak of light and soared into the sky. Dongbua Shuang raised his head and looked at him. Would he ever have the chance to see this adorable old man again? He didn't know why. Although he had never seen his grandfather before, he could feel his grandfather's aura from Chao Qing. Elder Chao, take care. Dongbua Shuang said quietly. After staying in Snow Rock Castle for 3 months, he had made all the necessary arrangements. The transcendent 7-leafed flower was also given to his parents. Then, on a summer morning, Dongbua Shuang and Jing Qiu began to roam the world together. Brother, write to me often. I'll come and find you often, Qing Shi shouted. Ha, don't worry. On the way down from Snow Rock Mountain, 2 treading snow horses galloped forward. Dongbua Shuang and Jing Qiu each rode a horse. The 2 of them were carefree and unrestrained as they traveled the world together. You said that you'll accompany me to every corner of the world. We'll eat all kinds of delicious food and see all kinds of beautiful sceneries. You can't go back on your words. Don't worry, I'll listen to you. If you tell me to go left, I won't dare to go right. If you tell me to go forward, I won't dare to go back. How about it? Good enough, right? Yes, yes, yes. Not bad, not bad. Chapter 276. Something good. Dongbua Shuaying's gaze swept across the people in front of him, including the golden-robed man. The golden-robed man smiled and said, Sand Tiger, have been in White River City for many years. I have long heard of a restaurant in White River City. The owner of the restaurant, Dongbua, is an incredible artist. I only got to meet him today. Artist? Palace Lord Chen laughed at the side. It was indeed interesting that the dignified Dongbua Shuang was called an artist. Dongbua Shuang nodded slightly. Scarlet Flame Night Sand Tiger, I have long heard of your name. I wonder why you are here today. My teacher is here, the silver-robed man, Long Tian Yun, stared. Tian Yun, shut up. The golden-robed man frowned. Yes. Long Tian Yun immediately shut up. He was very obedient and respectful. The golden-robed man continued with a smile, I am here because Dongbua, you have a good disciple, Yi Qing. Yi Qing. Shuang frowned. Over the past 100 years, he had casually taught spear techniques to a few people. Of which, he was quite fond of a few of them. However, the only one whose talent caught his eye was his 3rd disciple, Yi Qing. As for his eldest disciple, Long Tian Yun, his 2nd disciple, Chen Qin, and the other disciples he had taught, their talents were all ordinary. Even though he had taught them in accordance with their aptitudes, the chances of them becoming legend rankers in this lifetime were extremely low. After all, for a disciple to be powerful, the teacher was important, but the disciple himself was more important. Yi Qing belonged to the category of talented disciples. Yi Qing. The golden-robed man looked at Yi Qing. Senior Sand, if you have any problems, come at me. Why are you looking for my teacher? The red-robed man, Yi Qing, said angrily. The golden-robed man said, I am not looking for trouble. I am here to accept you as my disciple. Accept me as your disciple. Yi Qing was startled. Dongbua Shuang was also startled. Snatching disciples. Ha, I never thought that the young man my daughter likes is you. The golden-robed man laughed, although you have offended me before, it was unintentional. Since my daughter likes you, and your talent is high, you should accept me as your teacher. Join my Scarlet Flame's fortress and become my disciple. I can guarantee that you will become a legend ranker. I will give you the best dochi cultivation method so that you can cultivate faster. I will also give you better weapons. After that, you can become my son-in-law. We will be a family. White River City was only so big, and Ying was quite strong, so he naturally caught the eye of the Scarlet Flame Knight, Sand Tiger. But upon closer inspection, he was shocked. This brat who had just passed the age of 20 had actually reached the level of a spear grandmaster. Most people might not be able to see through it, but he himself was a grandmaster. With a single glance, he could tell that it was a grandmaster spear technique. It must be known that many legend rankers were not even at the level of a grandmaster in terms of combat techniques. This Ying brat was practically guaranteed to become a legend ranker. In addition, he also knew that the young man his daughter had always liked was this Ying. Thus, Shahu decided to have Long Tianyun lead the way to this Dongyu restaurant. Impossible. Ying shook his head. What did you say? The golden-robed man, Sand Tiger, thought that he had misheard. Master's kindness towards me is as heavy as a mountain. When I was under Master's tutelage, I was only 11 years old. I didn't have a father, and my mother didn't care about me. I couldn't eat well. It was Master who gave me food, bought me clothes, taught me spear techniques, taught me dochi techniques. To me, this is my home. Ying said. Dongbo Shuang heard this, and his heart warmed. He couldn't help but reveal a smile. This brat Ying, I can't leave, and I can't join your Scarlet Flame Fortress. Senior Sand, you are a legend knight, a peak existence in the entire White River County. What difference does it make if I join your Scarlet Flame Fortress or not? Ying said. You are going to accompany a group of children to practice such crude spear techniques in this place. The golden-robed man frowned and shouted, Ying, you should have a wider world. Master's health isn't good. Naturally, I have to accompany Master. Ying said. Standing beside Palace Lord Chen and Jing Qiu, Dongbo Shuang was even happier when he heard this. Ying, this mysterious guy, had long since trained his spear techniques to such a high level. Every day, he would come over to accompany me to practice with those children. So, it was because of my poor health. Among his disciples, Dongbo Shuang really liked Ying the most. When he first met Ying was only 11 years old. He was a skinny and weak brat who looked like an ordinary 7 or 8-year-old kid. Even in the middle of winter, he was dressed in rags. He was usually very well behaved, willing to work hard and obedient. He never thought that to Ying, this Dongyu restaurant had already become his home, and he had become his family. The golden-robed man said angrily, All right, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Do you like my daughter? Of course I do, Ying said. Then, come with me. The golden-robed man said angrily, If you dare to refuse, you and my daughter will never be able to be together. Moreover, if I give the order, your sickly master's Dongyu restaurant will be shut down. In fact, if I give the order, your master and the others will not have a good life. Ying was furious. However, he was clear of the influence of this veteran titled knight, Sand Tiger. In the entire Baijiang County, Sand Tiger was one of the top 3 strongest titled knights. You want to shut down my restaurant and make my life miserable? What a big mouth. Dongbo Shuang laughed. You sure are arrogant. The sorcerer god and the great demon god both wanted to kill you, but didn't they fail? The palace lord Chen laughed as well. The golden-robed Sand Tiger was stunned. Sorcerer god. The great demon god. The sorcerer god of the sorcerer god palace. The great demon god of the demonic faction. These two existences were too far away. They were not beings from the Xia people's world, but powerful spirits from the deity realm and the dark abyss. Wu Lei, teach him a lesson and chase him out. Dongbo Shuang casually ordered. Yes, master. The white-haired elder respectfully replied. At this moment, the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger, his subordinates, Long Tianyun, and his disciple Yi Qing were all staring blankly at this scene. The white-haired elder then turned his head to look at the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger. You. The Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger was stunned. An old man dared to attack him. You dare to disrespect master. The white-haired elder stretched out his hand. His palm immediately turned into a white fog, and the white fog instantly grabbed the golden-robed man. The golden-robed man felt that he was surrounded by fog. He wanted to struggle, but he couldn't. This caused him to reveal a look of fear. He was a titled knight, but he couldn't even struggle. Being grabbed by the white fog, the golden-robed man Sand Tiger spread his arms and legs wide open. Pang! 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 The dignified Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger slammed his face into the ground. In an instant, he slammed over 100 times. Every slap was extremely heavy, and even the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger spat out blood. How strong was a titled knight's body? He had already spat out blood, but there wasn't even a dent in the ground. The white-haired elder casually swung his arm, and the golden-robed man Sand Tiger fell to the side like a dead dog. Everyone was stunned, and Long Tianyun was even more confused. Senior. The golden-robed man Sand Tiger suddenly crawled to his feet. Disregarding his injuries, he was incomparably respectful, and even somewhat flattering. Senior, may I ask who you are? How cunning was the Sand Tiger? How could he not know that this white-haired elder was a terrifying existence? He was definitely a transcendent. The white-haired elder, Wu Lei, said, I am only master's weakest servant. This wasn't a lie. Among the deity warriors under his command, Wu Lei was indeed the weakest. However, he still had the strength of a veteran demigod. The weakest servant? Sand Tiger looked at Dongbo Shuang, Jing Qiu, and Palace Lord Chen in horror. Master! Suddenly, a loud shout rang out. Put on! Long Tianyun knelt heavily on the ground. His eyes were red and filled with tears. He looked at Dongbo Shuang and shouted, Master, I was wrong. Tianyun was wrong. Dongbo Shuang was instantly shocked. This eldest disciple of his had once again surpassed his understanding of him. He had originally been disappointed in him, but now, he was no longer just disappointed. He was completely speechless towards Long Tianyun. A person couldn't be this shameless. Scram! Dongbo Shuang suddenly waved his sleeves. Boom! A formless energy instantly enveloped the golden-robed man, Sand Tiger, Long Tianyun, and his subordinates. Shua, this group of people disappeared. In a luxurious castle in White River City, it occupied an area of more than 1 kilometer. It was even larger than Snow Rock Castle. For it to be so large in the entire county city, one could see how powerful it was. This was the Scarlet Flames Castle. A large group of people appeared out of thin air in the training grounds where the guards of the Scarlet Flames Castle usually gathered. At the same time, a group of horses also appeared out of thin air. Long Tianyun was still kneeling heavily on the ground. Sand Tiger was also somewhat stunned. The soldiers and the large group of horses were also stunned. Following that, a commotion broke out, and the horses neighed. Clearly, the sudden change in the surroundings was too much for the horses to bear. This is the Scarlet Flames Castle. Sand Tiger was stunned. This was his home, so of course he recognized it. We've reached the Scarlet Flames Castle. Long Tianyun was also stunned. With just a wave of his sleeves, we all went from Dongyu Restaurant to the Scarlet Flames Castle. This is the power of a fiend god. Even the transcendents I've heard of aren't this powerful. Could this be the legendary demigod of our Xia people? Sand Tiger gulped. At this time, a large group of guards and many family members of the Scarlet Flames castle rushed over. They were all shocked and bewildered. Father, why are you all here? Ah, Father, why are you covered in blood and filth? A green-robed young lady with bright eyes and white teeth ran over. Little Chi, my obedient daughter. Sand Tiger laughed loudly. It's fine, Father is fine. I approve of the matter between you and Yi Qing. I approve very much. Ha, if you have time, bring Yi Qing over here. Me and Yi Qing. The young lady was somewhat dazed by the surprise of her arrival. Sand Tiger suddenly looked at Long Tianyun, who was kneeling beside him in a daze. His eyes were filled with disgust as he shouted, "Throw this Long Tianyun out. He can forget about taking another step into the Scarlet Flames castle." Yes. Instantly, a group of guards rushed forward and grabbed Long Tianyun. My master, he. Long Tianyun could never forget the scene of his sickly master, Dong Bo, waving his sleeves. With a wave of his sleeves, the heavens and earth changed. He had clearly drawn out the ravine on the bark of a weeping willow by the roadside. Boss, this painting is really good. Sell it to me for 10 gold coins. A silver-haired old man walked over. The old man looked at the painting with an infatuated look. 100 gold coins, I won't sell anything lower. Shuang casually muttered, I say, old Cho, don't keep tormenting me. Don't tell me you don't know the rules of selling paintings. This kind of small painting is 100 gold coins, I won't sell any lower. You haven't finished painting yet. The silver-haired old man muttered, we've known each other for more than 10 years. Moreover, your paintings are too expensive. 100 gold coins is enough to buy a star-breaking crossbow and hire a group of knights. Look, how many paintings have you sold after so many years? It's been more than 10 years, and I remember that the number of paintings sold can be counted with one's fingers. But you've already painted more than 1,000 paintings. Moreover, even the paintings of famous masters are usually only worth 100 to 1,000 gold coins. I'm not famous, but old Cho. I'll give you one word. Buy it or leave it. Dongbo Shuang grinned and glanced at the old man. He could tell that the old man really liked his paintings. This old man really liked his paintings. Shuang questioned himself. Regarding painting techniques and artistic conception, he was absolutely not inferior to those mortals experts. Of course, his paintings were not packaged or boasted, so he didn't have any fame. However, he was just playing for fun. Moreover, every painting contained some of Dongbo Shuaying's comprehension towards spear arts. If one's mastery of spear arts had reached the level of a master, they might be able to comprehend a thing or two. In the past few years, he had sold a total of 5 paintings. Among them, 3 were bought by Palace Head Chen, Mountain Lord He, and Yuan Qing. The other 2 were bought by a spear expert and a young master from a rich family. That young master was even a good friend of his. As the owner of a restaurant, he had made many friends, and this old Cho was one of them. He was too stingy. Of course, it could also be because the price of his paintings was too high. Humph. Dongbo Shuang suddenly snorted. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and his fingers trembled. Instantly, a stroke appeared on the painting, and it was ruined. AI. Dongbo Shuang stood up and tore the painting. Don't. The silver-haired old man hurriedly said, you can give this to me. But Dongbo Shuang tore it in 2 or 3 moves. Old Cho, if it's not done well, I won't keep it. It was like the pursuit of the extreme in spear arts. Painting was the same as spear arts. If it was not done well, he would rather destroy it than keep it. How heartache. The silver-haired old man, old Cho, shook his head. Dongbu Shuang laughed. When he and Jing Qiu moved out of White River City, he would gift a painting to old Qiu as a gift. But for now, everything had to be done according to the rules. Without paying 100 gold coins, don't even think about taking away a painting. Dongbu Shuang stood up and walked towards the stairs. He frowned and thought to himself, the effects of the 100 bitter cycle are getting weaker and weaker. After consuming it for over 100 years, the 6 ghosts' resentment hexing poison in his body had gradually adapted to it, and the effects of the 100 bitter cycle were getting weaker and weaker. Even if he had just consumed it, the suppressive effects were already very weak, and the pain was terrifying. Not long after, the medicinal effects would completely disappear, and he would have to consume it every 2 hours. It could be said that he was constantly being tortured by this terrifying pain. Time and time again, Dongbu Shuang had the urge to drink the antidote. Although he knew that the effects were weak, it was still better than nothing. But he still endured it. I finally understand why many people who are poisoned don't live past 100 years. It's easy to endure it once, but to endure it day and night, it's really difficult. Dongbu Shuang thought to himself, but this can be considered as training my spirit and willpower. I'm afraid that in the entire mortal world, my spirit and willpower should be ranked at the very top. Initially, he was in so much pain that he couldn't control his body and would roll around. But now, he would only occasionally lose control of his muscles under extreme pain. This was all due to the suppression of willpower. Master. The gray-robed man who was leaning against the railing and drinking leisurely walked over and said softly. Swordsman, don't worry about me. Dongbu Shuang said as he walked downstairs. Swordsman was the 5th of the 5 shadows from the deity world. When Dongbu Shuang and Jing Qiu traveled outside, they would need subordinates to handle some miscellaneous matters. Thus, they brought along their weakest subordinates, the White Fog Ape and Swordsman. Walking down the stairs, Bei Feng walked through the back door of a restaurant and entered a courtyard. This was the residence of Dongbu Shuang and Jing Qiu for the past 10+ years. Ha! Ha! Crisp sounds rang out one after another. With a smile on his face, Shuang entered the training grounds. Within the training grounds, there was a group of people practicing their spear techniques. The youngest of them was probably only 6 or 7 years old. Their spear dance was quite interesting and fun. The oldest was already over 20 years old, and their movements were extremely graceful. Master! Master! When Dongbu Shuang arrived, they stopped and greeted him. You guys can continue. There's no need to mind me. Dongbu Shuang smiled. Because he was teaching spear arts for free, some of the children in the surrounding areas would come over to learn spear arts. However, he was only teaching them basic spear arts. Even if some of them had been practicing diligently for a few years, although he had taught them Do Chi techniques, they looked very ordinary on the surface. So far, he had only taught them Do Chi techniques to 5 disciples. Thus, there were not many people who came here to learn spear arts. Most of the neighbors probably thought that this place was meant to look after the children. Thunder mist. Dongbu Shuang suddenly called out. Hua! Immediately, a white-haired old man arrived at the training field and walked over. This white-haired old man was the White Fog Ape. Thunder mist could transform into mist, and it could also change into various forms. Naturally, it was better to transform into a human form when traveling outside. Master! The white-haired old man greeted respectfully. The youths who were practicing spear arts did not find it strange at all, because they knew that this was Butler Bai. They had heard that he was a Star Realm expert. Hurry up and get ready, the Palace Lord Chen is here. Dongbu Shuang said. Yes. The white-haired old man immediately retreated. Chapter 278. Dongbu Shuang raised his head and looked at the sky a few hundred li away. Not long after, a spatial crack appeared, and a figure appeared. He looked in Dongbu Shui Ying's direction. Their gazes met, and they both smiled. Following that, the figure teleported and disappeared. Dongbu Shuang walked to the closed north gate and opened it. A black-haired old man stood outside. Snow Eagle, the black-haired old man said with a smile. Palace Lord Chen, what brings you here today? Dongbu Shuang led the way, and the two walked in together. Of course I have something to discuss with you. This is my first time coming to Baijiang City. It's not bad, it's very beautiful. Palace Lord Chen smiled and praised, Snow Eagle, you really know how to pick a place. The last time we met was 30 years ago, right? It was on the beach of an island. The scenery there was so beautiful that even I was stunned. To be honest, you two really know how to pick a place. I've lived for almost 2,000 years, but I've never been to many places. So, Palace Lord Chen, you have to travel around as well. You have to explore the entire Xia people's world. Dongbu Shuang said, I've done it before when I was looking for the demon general, so I know where to bring Jing Qiu. If you want to go, I'll give you a list later. But to be honest, it's best to slowly experience the world. The customs of each place are different, and it's very interesting. Ha, I'm too busy, Palace Lord Chen shook his head. At this time, two people walked over from a distant corridor. One was Jing Qiu, who was wearing a dark blue robe, and the other was the white-haired old man, Wu Lei. Master, the preparations are done, the white-haired old man quickly walked to Dongbu Shuaying's side and said softly. Dongbu Shuaying nodded. Mage Jing Qiu, long time no see. The Palace Lord Chen smiled. He still held Jing Qiu in high regard, and had strong expectations for her. Although she became a transcendent a few years later than Dongbu Shuaying, she was still a sorcerer. Mages cultivated slowly in the early stages, and many mages only started to gradually cultivate magic after they reached adulthood. Mages needed to accumulate a lot. Therefore, the fact that Jing Qiu had become a transcendent magician at such a young age was also very shocking. It was just that she was overshadowed by Dongbu Shuang back then. Yuan Qing also had the same treatment as her. Yuan Qing had stepped into the transcendent realm at the age of 30, 2 years later than Dongbu Shuang and even earlier than Qi Qiu Bai. Furthermore, he had comprehended the profound mysteries of the third-grade true meaning of light and darkness the moment he stepped into the transcendent realm. His talent was similarly high. But at that time, the most dazzling person was Dongbu Shuang. His brilliance covered everyone else. He was publicly acknowledged as the most talented transcendent in the history of the Xia people. Even the sorcerer god and the great demon god did not hesitate to pay any price to deal with Dongbu Shuang. And now that 100 years had passed, both Jing Qiu and Yuan Qing had begun to shine. Because of the deity weapon, Ancestor Snow, Jing Qiu had received the full support of the Xia clan. In addition, Shuang had spared no effort in helping her. Naturally, she had long since become a peak stage saint mage, and was even ranked 9th on the saint rankings. Yuan Qing was even more dazzling. 30 years after breaking through the demonic faction headquarters, Yuan Qing had grasped the complete grade 3 true meaning of light and darkness. Not long ago, he had reached the stage 2 realm of the true meaning of light and darkness. In terms of cultivation speed, although he was not as fast as Dongbu Shuang, he was much faster than Qi Qiu Bai back then. Currently, he was ranked 2nd on the saint board. As for the first on the saint board? Naturally, it was Dongbu Shuang. Dongbu Shuang had requested to have his name removed from the board because it was pointless. But the saint board still required some authority. It was not something he could remove just because he wanted to. Nobody doubted Dongbu Shuaying's strength. Even with the strength he had displayed 100 years ago, only the top 10 demigods could suppress Dongbu Shuaying. It has indeed been a long time. Palace Lord Chen, why didn't you inform us beforehand that you were coming over? Jing Qiu said. The few of them were chatting at the edge of the training grounds. Dongbo Shui Ying's disciples did not dare to relax. All of them were practicing their spear techniques, shouting loudly. They could not hear what Dongbo Shui Ying and the others were saying. They thought that it was because they were too far away and their shouting was too noisy. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble. Dongbo Shui Ying and the others turned their heads to look outside the north gate. A group of knights appeared in the alley outside the north gate. They were riding on majestic horses. Very quickly, under the escort of the group of knights, a majestic man wearing a golden robe walked in. Behind him was a group of subordinates. Snow Eagle, he seems to be looking for you. Palace Lord Chen laughed. Dongbo Shui Ying nodded. His gaze landed on a silver-robed youth beside the majestic man. The silver-robed youth carried a spear holster on his back. Inside the holster was a long spear that had been split into two parts. The youth's face carried a faint trace of arrogance. Seeing this youth, Dongbo Shui Ying frowned. He could not help but feel a little resentful. Big senior brother. Big senior brother. The group of people who were practicing their spear techniques, regardless of whether they were young or old, shouted excitedly. This is my current teacher. He is a legend knight. The silver-robed youth said. Legend knight? Oh my god. These youngsters from ordinary families were shocked and they heard the words legend knight. To them, legend knights were simply legends. Wow, big senior brother, you actually have a legend knight as your teacher. That's too amazing. These youngsters were all excited. In the Xia people, it was very normal to have a few teachers. Brother Dongbo. The silver-robed youth looked at Dongbo Shui Ying. His eyelids twitched as he arrogantly said, You have seen my teacher. Why aren't you coming over to pay your respects? Long Tian Yun. Among the group of people who were practicing their spear techniques, the oldest one was a youth dressed in red. He was over 20 years old. He angrily shouted, How can you treat your teacher like this? You have been learning spear techniques from your teacher for a total of 12 years. Your family owed a huge debt. When someone came to collect the debt, it was my teacher who helped your family repay the debt. You were so brave and fierce. When you were seriously injured, it was my teacher who hired people to treat you. He provided for you to eat and drink, raised you up, and treated you like a family member. You shut up. The silver-robed youth angrily shouted. You still have the face to ask me to shut up. The red-robed youth angrily said. He was the one who was heartless first. The silver-robed youth angrily said. I was his disciple, not a beast. Beating, scolding, punishing, he simply didn't treat me as a human. Since that's the case, I will cut all ties with him. However, I, Long Tian Yun, will remember his kindness in the past. In the future, I will naturally repay him. Is it not right for your teacher to punish you? You took the money that your teacher wanted you to buy for senior sister's dowry. You actually went to a brothel to drink and compete for the title of courtesan. That was the dowry for senior sister's wedding. Is it wrong for me to punish you? What is this bit of money to my teacher? Just because of this bit of money, he punished me. The silver-robed youth coldly snorted. At the side, Palace Lord Chen smiled and said, Snow Eagle, it seems that you are not good at teaching disciples. I am ashamed, I am ashamed. Dongbo Shui Ying also shook his head. Back then, when he opened this restaurant, besides practicing his spear, he was also willing to teach the surrounding children for free. Because he looked like a sickly person, not many people came to learn. There were only 3 of them. This silver-robed youth, Long Tian Yun, was the eldest disciple. The other girl, Chen Qin, was already married and was the second senior sister. At this moment, the one arguing with Long Tian Yun was the third junior brother, Yi Qing. Dongbo Shui Ying looked at the silver-robed youth and shook his head inwardly. He had watched him grow up step by step from a skinny youth. He had a bad temper, and Dongbua Shuang had often guided him. Unfortunately, his kindness turned into hatred. He drank all of his junior sister's dowry and threw it away. Dongbua Shuang only punished him once before he cut all ties with him. After 12 years, even cats and dogs would develop feelings, let alone humans. Furthermore, with Dongbua Shuang's state of mind, he would not get angry with a little fellow. He was just a little disappointed. Unexpectedly, when he saw him today, he actually called him Brother Dongbua. Really, he completely did not treat him as his teacher. The 12 years of kindness was completely gone. Enough, Dongbua Shuang said. The moment he spoke, the third junior brother, Yiqing, and Long Tianyun both stopped. Brother Dongbua. What a good brother Dongbua. Dongbua Shuang looked at Long Tianyun. Dare I ask you, now that you are the disciple of a titled knight, why are you here? I called you Brother Dongbua because of our old friendship. The silver-robed youth, Long Tianyun, harumphed coldly. As for me coming here, it's naturally a good thing. To you, it's an extremely good thing. Asterisk asterisk. Chapter 279. Something good. Dongbua Shuang's gaze swept across the people in front of him, including the golden-robed man. The golden-robed man smiled and said, Sand Tiger, have been in White River City for many years. I have long heard of a restaurant in White River City. The owner of the restaurant, Dongbua, is an incredible artist. I only got to meet him today. Artist? Palace Lord Chen laughed at the side. It was indeed interesting that the dignified Dongbua Shuang was called an artist. Dongbua Shuang nodded slightly. Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger, I have long heard of your name. I wonder why you are here today. My teacher is here, the silver-robed man, Long Tianyun, stared. Tianyun, shut up. The golden-robed man frowned. Yes. Long Tianyun immediately shut up. He was very obedient and respectful. The golden-robed man continued with a smile, I am here because Dongbua, you have a good disciple, Yiqing. Yiqing. Shuang frowned. Over the past 100 years, he had casually taught spear techniques to a few people. Of which, he was quite fond of a few of them. However, the only one whose talent caught his eye was his third disciple, Yiqing. As for his eldest disciple, Long Tianyun, his second disciple, Chen Qin, and the other disciples he had taught, their talents were all ordinary. Even though he had taught them in accordance with their aptitudes, the chances of them becoming legend rankers in this lifetime were extremely low. After all, for a disciple to be powerful, the teacher was important, but the disciple himself was more important. Yiqing belonged to the category of talented disciples. Yiqing. The golden-robed man looked at Yiqing. Senior Sand, if you have any problems, come at me. Why are you looking for my teacher? The red-robed man, Yiqing, said angrily. The golden-robed man said, I am not looking for trouble. I am here to accept you as my disciple. Accept me as your disciple. Yiqing was startled. Dongbua Shuang was also startled. Stealing disciples? Ha, I never thought that the young man my daughter likes is you. The golden-robed man laughed, although you have offended me before, it was unintentional. Since my daughter likes you and your talent is high, you should accept me as your teacher. Join my Scarlet Flames Fortress and become my disciple. I can guarantee that you will become a legend ranker. I will give you the best Doqi cultivation method so that you can cultivate faster. I will also give you better weapons. Ha, after that, you can become my son-in-law. We will be a family. White River City was only so big, and Yiqing was quite strong, so he naturally caught the eye of the Scarlet Flame Knight, Sand Tiger. But upon closer inspection, he was shocked. This brat who had just passed the age of 20 had actually reached the level of a spear grandmaster. Most people might not be able to see through it, but he himself was a grandmaster. With a single glance, he could tell that it was a grandmaster spear technique. It must be known that many legend rankers were not even at the level of a grandmaster in terms of combat techniques. This Yiqing brat was practically guaranteed to become a legend ranker. In addition, he also knew that the young man his daughter had always liked was this Yiqing. Thus, Shahu decided to have Long Tianyun lead the way to this Dongyu restaurant. Impossible. Yiqing shook his head. What did you say? The golden-robed sand tiger thought that he had misheard. Master's kindness towards me is as heavy as a mountain. When I was under Master's tutelage, I was only 11 years old. I didn't have a father, and my mother didn't care about me. I couldn't eat well. It was Master who gave me food, bought me clothes, taught me spear techniques, taught me dochi techniques. To me, this is my home. Yiqing said. When Dongbo Shuang heard this, his heart warmed, and he couldn't help but reveal a smile. This brat Yiqing, it's impossible for me to leave. It's impossible for me to join your Scarlet Flame Fortress. Senior Sand, you are a legend knight, a peak existence in the entire White River County. What difference does it make if I join your Scarlet Flame Fortress or not? Yiqing said. You are going to accompany a group of children to practice such crude spear techniques in this place. The golden-robed man frowned and shouted, Yiqing, you should have a wider world. Master's health isn't good. Naturally, I have to accompany Master, Yiqing said. Standing beside Palace Lord Chen and Jing Qiu, Dongbo Shuang was even happier when he heard this. Yiqing, this mysterious guy, had long since trained his spear techniques to such a high level. Every day, he would come over to practice with those children to accompany him. So it was because he saw that Dongbo Shuang's health wasn't good. Among his disciples, Dongbo Shuang really liked Yiqing the most. When he first met Yiqing, Yiqing was only 11 years old. He was a skinny and weak brat who looked like an ordinary 7 or 8-year-old kid. Even in the middle of winter, he was dressed in rags. He was usually very well behaved, willing to work hard and obedient. He never thought that to Yiqing, this Dongyu restaurant had already become his home, and he had become his family. Humph. The golden-robed man said angrily, All right, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Do you like my daughter? Of course I do, Yiqing said. Then, come with me. The golden-robed man said angrily, If you dare to refuse, you and my daughter will never be able to be together. Moreover, if I give the order, your sickly master's Dongyu restaurant will be shut down. Even if I give a slight signal, your master and the others will not have a good life. Yiqing was furious. However, he was clear of the influence of this veteran-titled knight, Sand Tiger. In the entire Baijiang County, Sand Tiger was one of the top 3 strongest titled knights. You want to shut down my restaurant and make my life miserable? What a big mouth. Dongbo Shuang laughed. You sure are arrogant. The sorcerer god and the great demon god both wanted to kill you, but didn't they fail? The palace Lord Chen laughed as well. The golden-robed Sand Tiger was stunned. Sorcerer god. The great demon god. The sorcerer god of the sorcerer god palace. The great demon god of the demonic faction. These two existences were too far away. They were not beings from the Xia people's world, but powerful spirits from the deity realm and the dark abyss. Wu Lei, teach him a lesson and chase him out. Dongbo Shuang casually ordered. Yes, master. The white-haired elder respectfully replied. At this moment, the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger, his subordinates, Long Tianyun, and his disciple Yiqing were all staring blankly at this scene. The white-haired elder then turned his head to look at the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger. You! The Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger was stunned. An old man dared to attack him. You dare to be disrespectful to master. The white-haired elder stretched out his hand. His palm immediately turned into a white fog, and the white fog instantly grabbed the golden-robed man. The golden-robed man felt that he was surrounded by fog. He wanted to struggle, but he was unable to do so. This caused a look of fear to appear on his face. He was a titled knight, but he was unable to struggle at all. Being grabbed by the white fog, the golden-robed man sand tiger spread his arms and legs wide open. Pang! 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 The dignified scarlet flame knight sand tiger slammed his face into the ground. In an instant, he slammed over 100 times. Every strike was extremely heavy, and even the scarlet flame knight sand tiger spat out blood. How strong was a titled knight's body? He had already spat out blood, but there wasn't even a dent in the ground. The white-haired elder casually swung his arm, and the golden-robed man sand tiger fell to the side like a dead dog. Everyone was stunned, and Long Tianyun was even more confused. Senior. The golden-robed man sand tiger suddenly crawled to his feet. Disregarding his injuries, he was incomparably respectful, and even somewhat flattering. Senior, may I ask who you are? How cunning was the sand tiger? How could he not know that this white-haired elder was a terrifying existence? He was definitely a transcendent. The white-haired elder, Wu Lei, said, I am only Master's weakest servant. This was not a lie. Among the deity warriors under his command, Wu Lei was indeed the weakest. However, he still had the strength of a veteran demigod. The weakest servant? Sand Tiger looked at Dongbu Shuang, Jing Qiu, and Palace Lord Chen in horror. Master! Suddenly, a loud shout rang out. Put on! Long Tianyun knelt heavily on the ground. His eyes were red and filled with tears. He looked at Dongbu Shuang and shouted, Master, I was wrong. Tianyun was wrong. Dongbu Shuang was instantly shocked. This eldest disciple of his had once again surpassed his understanding of him. Originally, he had been disappointed in him, but now, he was no longer just disappointed. He was completely speechless towards Long Tianyun. A person could not be this shameless. Scram! Dongbu Shuang suddenly waved his sleeves. Boom! A formless energy instantly enveloped the golden-robed man, Sand Tiger, Long Tianyun, and his subordinates. Shua, this group of people disappeared. Inside a luxurious castle in White River City, it occupied an area of more than 1 kilometer, and was even larger than Snowrock Castle. For it to be so large in the entire county city, one could see how powerful it was. This was the Scarlet Flames Castle. A large group of people appeared out of thin air on a drill ground where the guards of the Scarlet Flames Castle usually trained. At the same time, a group of horses also appeared out of thin air. Long Tianyun was still kneeling heavily on the ground. Sand Tiger was also in a daze. The soldiers and the large group of horses were all stunned. Following that, a commotion broke out, and the horses neighed. Clearly, the sudden change in the surroundings was too much for the horses to bear. This is the Scarlet Flames Castle. Sand Tiger was stunned. This was his home, so of course he recognized it. We've reached the Scarlet Flames Castle. Long Tianyun was also stunned. With just a wave of his sleeves, we all went from Dongyu Restaurant to the Scarlet Flames Castle. This is the power of a fiend god. Even the transcendents I've heard of aren't this powerful. Could this be the legendary demigod of our Xia people? Sand Tiger gulped. He was a little scared. At this time, a large group of guards and many family members of the Scarlet Flames Castle rushed over. They were all shocked and bewildered. Father, why are you all here? Ah, Father, why are you covered in blood and filth? A green-robed young lady with bright eyes and white teeth ran over. Little Chi, my obedient daughter. Sand Tiger laughed. It's fine, Father is fine. I approve of the matter between you and Yi Qing. I approve very much. Ha, if you have time, bring Yi Qing here. Me and Yi Qing. The young lady was somewhat dazed by the surprise of her arrival. Sand Tiger suddenly looked at Long Tianyun, who was kneeling beside him in a daze. His eyes were filled with disgust as he shouted, "Throw this Long Tianyun out. He can forget about taking another step into the Scarlet Flame's castle." Yes. Instantly, a group of guards rushed forward and grabbed Long Tianyun. My master, he. Long Tianyun could never forget the scene of his sickly master, Dong Bo, waving his sleeves. With a wave of his sleeves, the heavens and earth changed. Chapter 280. In the northern courtyard of Dongyu Restaurant, the youngsters including Ying were all blinking their eyes. If the familiar housekeeper by casually trampled on the Scarlet Flame Knight Sand Tiger was unbelievable to them, then the sickly master that they were most familiar with a wave of his hand, a large group of people and horses disappeared into thin air. This was simply shocking to them. Master, you. Ying looked at Dongbu Shuang. That's not right, Master's body is indeed not well. It has been more than 10 years, and I have been with Master day and night, there is no way I am wrong. There is no need for Master to keep pretending to be sick. Actually, Dongbu is just my surname. Dongbu Shuang said, my actual name is Dongbu Shuang. Dongbu Shuang. Ying was confused. The others beside him were also confused. Who is it? Ha ha ha. Palace Lord Chen laughed out loud upon seeing this. Snow Eagle, your disciples have never heard of your name. Tell me your name, haha. Dongbu Shuang was also speechless. Alright, back when he was a legend ranker, the number of transcendents he knew was very few. His disciple Ying's strength was even weaker than him back then, and his knowledge was probably much lower. Transcendents were too far away for him, and most of them only knew about transcendence through biographies and novels. Biographies and novels were usually about transcendence from a long time ago. Although biographies and novels about Dongbu Shuang had started to circulate, they were still limited to only a few places. Furthermore, there were not many people who liked to read biographies and novels. This disciple of his, Ying, did not read biographies and novels. You will know in the future. Dongbu Shuang smiled. Ying was also somewhat ashamed that he did not even know what his master's name represented. He secretly decided that he would ask around later on, who exactly was this Dongbu Shuang? As a disciple, how could he not know his master's name? Master, then big senior brother. Ying said. He is not your big senior brother. Dongbu Shuang shook his head. Then how should we treat Long Tianyun in the future? Ying asked. Just pretend that you don't know this person, Dongbu Shuang said. Alright, I still have something to do. You go ahead. As he spoke, he turned around and accompanied Palace Lord Chen down the corridor. Along the corridor, Dongbu Shuang, Palace Lord Chen, and Jing Qiu walked side by side, while Butler Wu Lei followed behind them. Snow Eagle, you're really good at teaching disciples. When it comes to choosing disciples, character is very important. Palace Lord Chen said with a smile, either you choose carefully, and only accept disciples after you've confirmed their character and talent, or you nurture them from young. I'm just traveling around the Xia people's world and casually teaching them some basic spear techniques. Dongbu Shuang said. Everything is up to fate. You don't have to be demanding. Jing Qiu said, when that Long Tianyun first came here to learn spear techniques, he was the oldest. He was already 15 years old. 15 is too old, and it's hard to change one's character. I already knew that he had a bad temper, and tried to persuade Snow Eagle to chase him out, but Snow Eagle felt that he was too pitiful. His bad temper was also caused by his family. Dongbu Shuang said. His father was a gambling addict, and would beat and scold him as he pleased. He even asked for debts. His body was weak and sickly, and he almost starved to death. He came here to learn spear techniques so that he could eat his fill. How could I chase him away just because he had a bad temper? Let him die of sickness and starvation outside? Since he came here to learn spear techniques, it means that we are fated. I have to help him out of that quagmire. It's just that I didn't expect that even though his temper was a bit bad, he didn't do anything bad. He was quite obedient in front of me. But the older he gets, the more disappointed I am. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. The older he got. As Long Tianyun's strength increased, the flaws in his character were also revealed. He liked to fight, was extravagant, and was ostentatious. It was as though his childhood was too bitter, and he became even more extravagant when he grew up. Because he was the oldest, and his talent in cultivation was limited, Dongbo Shuiying's initial plan was to groom his third disciple, find a good husband for his second disciple, and arrange for Dragon Mountain Manor to take care of her. As for his eldest disciple, he would let her manage this restaurant. Who would have thought that the moment this eldest disciple came into contact with money, he would spend it wantonly? He had also punished him, but he didn't expect that the money used to buy his second disciple's dowry would be used by this eldest disciple to drink with prostitutes, and even compete for the title of courtesan. Throwing away money at one go. At that time, Dongbo Shuang was truly enraged, and he punished him harshly. Thus, Long Tianyun decided to sever all ties with Dongbo Shuang. He clearly felt that his wings had hardened, and he was strong enough, so he would be able to do well outside. You are still too soft-hearted, Palace Lord Qin said. However, I can foresee that without your care, this kind of ungrateful person will still suffer greatly in the future. When he was young, I could take care of him. But now, he can do whatever he wants, Dongbo Shuang said. Palace Lord Qin nodded slightly. He finally understood. Dongbo Shuang did things according to his heart. He felt that he should save people when he needed to, and that he should end things when they were fated to. He had his own principles in mind. Soon, the three of them entered a living room and sat cross-legged. There were exquisite side dishes, fruits, pastries, and fine wine on the table in front of them. I came here today for a very important matter, Palace Lord Qin said as soon as he sat down. Oh. Dongbo Shuang and Jing Qiu were both surprised. One of them was a saint-rank transcendent sorcerer, while the other was currently poisoned. What important matter could he have with them? It's about Crimson Rock Mountain, Palace Lord Qin said. Dongbo Shuiying's expression changed. He couldn't help but ask, should Jing Qiu avoid it? Ordinary demigods of the Xia people did not have the right to know about Crimson Rock Mountain. You will have to tell her about this matter eventually, so there is no need to avoid it, Palace Lord Qin said. Crimson Rock Mountain. Jing Qiu listened curiously from the side. Where is this? I have never heard of a special place called Crimson Rock Mountain. Palace Lord Qin smiled. Crimson Rock Mountain is an extremely special place. It is located 100,000 kilometers underground in the Xia people's world. 100,000 kilometers underground? Jing Qiu was shocked. 300 kilometers underground would begin to be obstructed by formless laws. The deeper one went, the greater the obstruction from the laws of the material mortal world. Therefore, even demigods of the Xia people would find it extremely difficult to reach a depth of 100,000 kilometers. For a place called Crimson Rock Mountain to be so deep, Jing Qiu realized that things were not normal. Snow Eagle, you should know that ever since Crimson Rock Mountain descended from the deity realm and fell into our Xia people's world, several powerful existences from the deity realm sent teams of demigods into our Xia people's world, Palace Lord Qin said. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Jing Qiu's heart was in her throat. Sending demigods in. Demigod transcendence usually had to rely on the temporal temple to be sent in, and the price of transportation was extremely terrifying. Therefore, other than the otherworldly visitors who came through the spatial cracks by chance, the price of every demigod who came through the transportation of the temporal temple was extremely shocking. There was no need to even mention a team of demigods. Crimson Rock Mountain is too dangerous, and there is a slim chance of survival, Palace Lord Qin said. Back then, too many foreign demigods died in Crimson Rock Mountain. Therefore, in the past million years, the Xia people's world has been relatively peaceful. Occasionally, there would be a team. But now, it's different, Palace Lord Qin said solemnly. Dongbu Shuang furrowed his brows as he listened. The sorcerer god and the great demon god's plan should be known by some powerful existences from the deity realm and the dark abyss. Therefore, recently, there have been many visitors from other worlds, all of whom were sent by the temporal temple. Moreover, I heard that every visitor brought a deity weapon with them. Palace Lord Qin took a deep breath. Clearly, this time, the powerful existences from the deity realm and the dark abyss are going to fight for real. Bring deity weapons? Dongbu Shuang was shocked. The price of sending peak demigods in was very high, and the price of sending deity weapons down was even higher. These visitors from another world all brought divine artifacts with them. This was crazy. A team from the Temple of the Earth God has already arrived in the Xia people's world. Palace Lord Qin said, I've already gone to meet them and asked for their help. I've asked them to bring you to Crimson Rock Mountain. Me to Crimson Rock Mountain? Dongbu Shuang was puzzled. Snow Eagle, you've been afflicted with the 6 ghosts' resentment voodoo poison for over 100 years. I'm afraid that the effects of the antidote are very low. You've been suffering every single moment of the day, right? Palace Lord Qin said, can you endure such days? I'm fine. I've just drunk the antidote, so I feel better. Dongbu Shuang said. If the antidote is useless, and you can't even control your body due to the pain, how are you going to fight? Palace Lord Qin frowned. You can still control your body, and you can still fight. Therefore, you can still go to Crimson Rock Mountain to fight. If this drags on, I'm afraid you won't even have the chance to fight in the future. If there's a place that can save you, I can only think of Crimson Rock Mountain. Chapter 281. Snow Eagle, you should know about the mysteries of Crimson Rock Mountain. It is all-encompassing, and even powerful existences in the deity world and abyss desire treasures. Why had the sorcerer god and the great demon god spared no expense for Crimson Rock Mountain? Now, the powerful deities of the divine realm and abyss have paid a huge price to send teams of half-deities with divine weapons to descend upon the Crimson Rock Mountain. Palace Head Qin advised, back then, when Ancestor Black Wind entered, you saw the treasures he obtained. Dongbu Shuang nodded. The treasures that Ancestor Black Wind obtained alone were already shocking enough. There were a total of 7 deity world soldiers, and 3 of them were at the peak of the demigod realm. Unfortunately, one of them, the Gold Man, had been captured by the Spider Queen during the battle back then and escaped with her. Even now, he had not been rescued. Although Dongbu Shuang had teamed up with the demigods of the Xia people to explore the oceanic forest world, it was a pity that the oceanic forest world was impregnable. Even if they were to explore the mirage, they would not be able to find anything. Curing the 6 ghosts' resentment voodoo poison is nothing on Crimson Rock Mountain. Palace Lord Qin said. The only problem is that Crimson Rock Mountain is very dangerous. It's dangerous. Even an era suppressor would have a slim chance of surviving, Eastern European Snow Eagle said. In the history of the Xia people, there are very few who can come out alive after entering alone. Sigh, Chao-Ching also didn't come out after entering. Palace Lord Qin shook his head and sighed. Dongbu Shuang felt a slight pain in his heart. Old Chao, on the day of his wedding, he had bid farewell to him and then entered Crimson Rock Mountain. He had yet to come out. One had to know that if Chao-Ching had lived until now, he would have been more than 3,000 years old. However, the maximum lifespan of a demigod was only 3,000 years. Chao-Ching's combat aura doppelganger stayed in the outside world for nearly a year before it finally dissipated because it ran out of combat aura, Palace Lord Qin said. At least he didn't die during the year he was in there. As for now, although more than 100 years have passed, he might have already become a god in Crimson Rock Mountain. Dongbu Shuang nodded his head lightly. This was just a casual remark. After all, how difficult was it to become a god? They all knew that the possibility of Chao Qing still being alive was extremely low. After Vice Faction head Chao condensed his true deity heart, his strength is close to Mountain Lord He's, and he's also very experienced. Yet, he still hasn't come out. You said that even an era suppressor has a slim chance of surviving. What should we do? Jing Qiu was getting anxious. Suppressing an era? None of the Xia people could be considered an era suppressor. Therefore, I went to pay a visit to the team from the Terrene Shrine. Palace Lord Chen said, the Terrene Shrine has sent a team of demigods. There are a total of 3 experts in this demigod team, and all of them have unfathomable powers. The weakest one has the power to suppress an era, while the strongest leader is even more impressive. When I was chatting with them, I could sense that the other 2 did not dare to disobey their leader. Shuang and Jing Qiu were both startled upon hearing this. 3 experts, even the weakest one had the power to suppress an era? In the end, we are only in the mortal world, while this team of demigods is a team of true elites chosen by the Terrene Shrine. Palace Lord Chen said, the sorcerer god and the great demon god's plan has caused some of the strongest existences in the deity world and abyss to make a final gamble. Naturally, the team they sent will be sufficiently powerful. At the very least, I estimate that this team will be able to easily deal with some of the dangers ahead of Crimson Rock Mountain. Snow Eagle, as long as you follow them, you won't have to exert much effort. I believe that you will be able to reap great rewards. Perhaps you will even be able to cure the 6 ghosts' resentment. After that, you will be able to find an opportunity to return. It will be much easier to travel with a strong team. It will be too difficult to rely on myself, Palace Lord Chen said. Are they willing to bring Snow Eagle along? Jing Qiu asked. Palace Lord, I heard you say that Crimson Rock Mountain is so dangerous. This team from the Terrene Shrine only has 3 experts. I'm afraid that their teamwork will be very good. Are they willing to bring one person along? Having more people wasn't always better. Sometimes, a bad teammate would be a burden to others. This is also a troublesome point. Palace Lord Chen said, but first, the Terrene Shrine owes Snow Eagle a favor for breaching the demonic faction headquarters. Second, if this team from the Terrene Shrine wants to obtain information about Crimson Rock Mountain from the Xia people, they will have to bring Snow Eagle along. Otherwise, the information that we Xia people have gathered about Crimson Rock Mountain will not be given to them. Because of these 2 factors, they will also let Snow Eagle meet them. After confirming that Snow Eagle will not be a burden, they will bring him along. I feel that with the true meaning and profound mysteries of Snow Eagle, it shouldn't be difficult for him to not be a burden. Dongbu Shuang looked at Jing Qiu, who was beside him, with some hesitation. He was prepared to accompany Jing Qiu, but if he were to go, it would be fine if he succeeded, but if he failed, he would die in Crimson Rock Mountain. Snow Eagle, you still have a chance. But if you delay any longer, the effects of the medicine will worsen. Without such a strong team to accompany you, you won't even have a chance. Palace Lord Chen said anxiously. If you retreat, only death awaits you. But if you take the risk and succeed, you will benefit immeasurably. With your talent, you might even become a god in the future, Palace Lord Chen advised. He strongly hoped that Dongbu Shuang would take the risk. If he didn't, only death awaited him. The most dazzling genius in the history of the Xia people shouldn't die like this. Snow Eagle, go on. Jing Qiu looked at Dongbu Shuang and smiled. I know you can't bear to part with me, but we've been together for so many years, and I'm already satisfied. Go on, if you succeed, we can be together for a longer time. You won't have to suffer the pain of the voodoo poison day and night, and we can have a child that belongs to us. Dongbu Shuang nodded slightly. A child. Due to the hexing poison in their bodies, it was impossible for the two of them to have children. Over the past few years, Shuang had often taken in children to teach him his spear techniques. He could also feel that Jing Qiu, in her heart, wanted to have a child with the two of them. All right. Dongbu Shuang's eyes lit up. Dongbu Shuang, will give it my all. Once again, he picked up his spear and started battling. This time, it was for the sake of his life, and also for the sake of his loved ones. Ha ha ha, that's how it should be. Palace Lord Chen laughed. Youngsters should be filled with fighting spirit. Snow Eagle, I believe that you will definitely be able to come out of Crimson Rock Mountain alive. At that time, you will be different. I'm also looking forward to that day. Dongbu Shuang nodded, his eyes burning with passion. Since he had decided, then he would give it his all. Dongbu Shuang didn't have any worries. He had already made arrangements for his family. Other than Jing Qiu, only Qing Shi had become a transcendent by himself. Speaking of which, when Dongbu Shuang and Jing Qiu got married, Qing Shi and Daya got married soon after. Previously, he had been stuck at the legend rank, but on the second day of his wedding, Qing Shi actually broke through and became a transcendent. Qing Shi already had a bunch of children and grandchildren. His parents were very happy about this. As for his parents and Uncle Zong, they all relied on the transcendent seven-petaled flower to become a pseudo-transcendent. As for Uncle Tong, that boorish lion man, because he couldn't become a legend ranker, Dongbu Shuang couldn't do anything about it. In the end, he collapsed and died. Before he died, Dongbu Shuang also went to visit him. Because Uncle Tong consumed a lot of elixirs, he lived to the age of 200 before dying of old age. This boorish lion man was very happy before he died, because he had a large group of children and grandchildren by his side. A large group of lion men of different ages surrounded his bedside. Dongbu Shuang could feel Uncle Tong's happiness. That day, Dongbu Shuang accompanied him by his side until Uncle Tong closed his eyes. When Uncle Tong died, he didn't seem to have changed much from when he was young. The only difference was that there were more wrinkles on his face, and his originally vibrant yellow hair had become a withered yellow. On the second day of Palace Lord Chen's visit, Dongbu Shuang set off alone towards the Temple of the Earth God's headquarters in the Xia people's world. Chapter 282. While Dongbu Shuang was heading towards the headquarters of the Terrene Temple in the Xia people's world, in another location, the Meishan master was living in seclusion in an island county city. This was a simple courtyard. Within the courtyard, a lonely old man was pouring fruit wine. Beside the table were two other people. One of them was a black-robed man. His eyes were filled with malice and madness. The other was a beautiful white-robed young lady. Both of them had a look of excitement on their faces. Third brother, how long has it been? We are finally reunited. The black-robed man said emotionally, ever since you broke free from the temporal temple and came to the Xia people's world, we have always wanted to see you. However, you should know that as a reincarnator of the temporal temple, we have no choice. If we really wanted to come to this world, the price would be too high. Fortunately, we have to go through another life and death adventure. Brother Martial Emperor, you are so handsome. Why do you always look like an old man? The white-robed young lady said, you should change back to your original appearance. That's right. As a mighty martial emperor, how can you always look so lethargic? The black-robed man shook his head. Martial emperor is dead. I am just a lone traveler in Meishan. The lonely old man smiled. Today, I call myself the Meishan master. Meishan, Meishan. You really can't forget Meishan and big sister. The black-robed man shook his head. Forget? Why would I forget? The days in Meishan were the happiest days of my life. Although they were short, they were enough. However, the restrictions of the temporal temple left us with no choice. The lonely old man's eyes were filled with hatred. After so many life and death experiences, Sister Ping still died. Not only was her fate controlled, even her soul was controlled by the temporal temple. How could I accept that? I had to break free at all costs. The Crimson Rock Mountain of the Xia people's world was left behind by a powerful existence from the deity world. If I can find some opportunities there, I will have a chance of reviving Sister Ping. You still want to revive Big Sister? The two companions beside him were stunned. Do you think that Sister Ping is completely dead? The lonely old man laughed coldly. No. Although Sister Ping did not pass the 3 punishment hell missions, the temporal temple only took her away. But in reality, the temporal temple had only taken Sister Ping's soul away, and she was still under its control. If the temporal temple didn't squeeze out all of our potential, how could they let us die so easily? Sigh, we've already guessed it. The black-robed man shook his head. But we don't have the courage to risk everything like you, just for a sliver of hope to escape. Once he agreed and signed the contract, how difficult would it be to regain his freedom? Only by advancing courageously and becoming a deity, or even a great world deity, will we be able to regain our freedom. That's right, advance bravely, the white-clothed girl also said. Second brother, little sister, since I have accepted the invitation of that world deity from the temporal temple, I will naturally do my best. I will do my best to help him get what he wants. The lonely old man said, the two of you will follow me when the time comes. Right, it's been many years since we last met. How has your strength improved? The higher one's strength is, the harder it will be to improve. The effects of life and death missions will also become weaker. Right now, our strength is just barely approaching the level you were at when you left, Big Brother Martial Emperor, said the young woman in white. Not bad. However, Crimson Rock Mountain is fraught with dangers, more dangerous and terrifying than any of your previous missions. Therefore, you must follow me. The Maishan Master's eyes shone with sharpness. And this time, no one can stand in my way. I will kill anyone who blocks my path. A terrifying killing intent began to spread out. The black-robed male and white-clothed girl's eyes were filled with excitement and anticipation. This was their former captain, the martial monarch whose fame had spread far and wide. Apart from the legends, the heaven-defying existences who had grasped hold of a grade 1 true meaning, those who had grasped hold of a grade 1 true meaning would never risk their lives in Crimson Rock Mountain. The value of a grade 1 true meaning transcendent was not much lower than that of Crimson Rock Mountain. Of the temporal temple's reincarnators who had grasped hold of a grade 2 true meaning, there were some who were weaker, and some who were extremely terrifying. Some even had the demeanor of a grade 1 true meaning transcendent. The temporal temple would also give them some special privileges. But in reality, they were just one step short. No matter how many grade 2 true meanings they grasped, they would never be able to compare to a grade 1 true meaning. But this martial emperor was one of the most dazzling reincarnators who had grasped hold of a grade 2 true meaning. In the past, he had even done something astonishing, he had actually taken the initiative to accept 3 hell rank missions. He had truly transcended. After breaking free from the temporal temple's restrictions, he regained his freedom and became a legend. When he left, he had requested for the temporal temple to place him in the Xia people's world. He had been waiting here, silently accumulating his fighting spirit. He was waiting. Waiting for his strength to reach a certain level. Waiting for everything to fall into place, then he would charge into Crimson Rock Mountain. Unexpectedly, a higher-up of the temporal temple had asked for his help. Furthermore, the higher-up had paid a huge price and given him many treasures. The Maishan master naturally nodded in agreement. The two who came to help him were his 2 companions who had gone through life and death together. Of the 9 companions he had, only the 3 of them were left alive. In the vast and continuous dark yellow palace, there were as many experts as the clouds. There were also groups of temporal temple guards, many of whom were pseudo-transcendents. They were originally legend rankers who chose to transcend. Even though there was a slim chance of survival, after becoming a pseudo-transcendent, they would still have to serve the temporal temple for many years to compensate for their efforts. Only after that would they regain their freedom. Who? A crack appeared high up in the sky, and a white-robed youth walked out from it. His face was still rather pale. With a single step, he arrived at the entrance of the majestic dark yellow palace. Lord Dongbu Shuang. The guards at the entrance did not dare to be negligent. Anyone who could tear through space and rush over was definitely not an ordinary person. After calculating the top transcendence of the Xia people's memories, they realized that this white-robed youth looked exactly the same as the Dongbu Shuang they knew of. The only difference was his complexion. In the pictures they had seen, he was dressed in black, revealing his sharpness. Dongbu Shuang has come to pay a visit. You just need to pass on the message. Dongbu Shuang said. Yes, yes, yes. Lord Dongbu Shuang, please wait a moment. The guards immediately replied. In a garden deep within the temple of the Earth God, 3 people were present. One of them had a majestic build, fiery red hair, and a pair of fiery red eyes. His entire body was emitting a terrifying tyrannical aura, as though he was a volcano. He was currently lying on a chair, holding a wine flask in his hand as he poured wine into his mouth. At the same time, he was muttering, "The mortal world is indeed the mortal world. Even the wine is ordinary. The mortal world is a material world. Countless deities are fighting for the faith of the material world. You cannot underestimate it." A tall, skinny man dressed in thick robes was sitting cross-legged in a corner as he casually replied. Inside the pavilion, a young man in golden armor was sitting alone, eating all sorts of pastries and food. "Young master!" That majestic red-haired man shouted. "I heard that there will be a team of demigods from the dark abyss this time. There will also be 2 or 3 teams from the temporal temple who are struggling with their lives. There will also be a team of demigods from our deity world. I'm afraid it will be very interesting." It is indeed interesting. I've long heard that the reincarnators of the temporal temple are very interesting. I really want to see how powerful they are. After all, we fought our way to first place in the competition of our starfield. The expert dressed in thick robes said excitedly. It's fine if they don't come to cause trouble. If they dare to fight with us, we'll just kill them. The golden-armored youth who was eating the pastries said coldly. The golden-armored youth suddenly looked towards the sky. That person from the Xia people's world called Dongbu Shuang has arrived. Dongbu Shuang. That brat's talent is very high. He has grasped hold of 2 grade 2 true meanings in less than 100 years. One of them is said to be the true meaning of shadow or the true meaning of mirage, the muscular red-haired man said. It's a pity that he's only at the stage 1 realm. His combat power is simply too weak. Him moving together with us is simply a huge burden. 100 years have passed. This Dongbu Shuaying's combat power should have increased by quite a bit, the tall, skinny man said. Let's wait and see. This Xia people's intelligence regarding Crimson Rock Mountain is quite rich. It'll be best if we can get our hands on it, the golden-armored youth said. But if he's really a burden, we'd rather not get our hands on that intelligence than to let him live. Soon. Under the guidance of the guards, Dongbu Shuang arrived at the garden. He saw the 3 demigods sent by the temple of the Earth God from the deity world. Dongbu Shuang greets the 3 of you, Dongbu Shuang said. Chapter 283. Dongbu Shuang looked at the 3 people in front of him. Before coming here, Palace Lord Chen had naturally sent him information on these 3. These 3 were said to be a team of demigods dispatched by the temple of the Earth God from the deity world. The sturdy red-haired man lying on the chair was probably the weakest of the three. His name was Bo. The tall and skinny man wrapped in robes beside him was called Bahan. As for the golden-armored young man sitting in the pavilion eating pastries, he was the leader of this team. He was also the strongest existence, and his name was Wu Mahai. A team of demigods from the deity world. Dongbo Shuang could feel an invisible pressure just by looking at the three people in front of him, especially that Wu Mahai. Despite having the appearance of a young man, his entire aura was dark and filled with a frightening intent of destruction. It was as if anyone who dared approach him would be torn to shreds. He seemed to represent the ultimate darkness and destruction of all laws of profound mysteries around him. Even the weakest has the strength of an era suppressor. Just how strong is this golden-armored young man, Wu Mahai? Dongbo Shuang sighed inwardly. He's indeed worthy of being a true elite. You're Dongbo Shuang. Suddenly, a casual voice rang out. The sturdy red-eyed man, Bo, sat up straight with a flask of wine in his hand. Yes. Dongbo Shuang nodded. I've heard that you're the transcendent with the highest talent in the history of your Xia people's world, having grasped hold of two grade 2 true meanings. The sturdy man Bo asked, one of them seems to be the true meaning of shadow or the true meaning of mirage. I wonder which one it is. Dongbo Shuang was startled. He smiled. The true meaning of mirage. Palace Lord Chen and the others knew that he had grasped hold of the true meaning of mirage, just that he did not publicize it. In truth, whether he publicized it or not did not make much of a difference. This was because the demonic faction and Sorcerer Palace had guessed that Dongbo Shuang had comprehended either the true meaning of shadow or the true meaning of mirage. These two true meanings were extremely terrifying and specialized in assassination. The true meaning of mirage was relatively weaker in terms of attack power, but it could control countless illusory images and even illusion clones. Therefore, in terms of assisting in assassination, the true meaning of mirage was more proficient. Amazing, to be able to grasp the true meaning of mirage. The muscular man, Bo, sighed in admiration. The tall and skinny man wrapped in robes and the golden-armored youth also looked at Dongbo Shuang. Dongbo Shuang stood there with a smile. Since he was prepared to join, he naturally had to show some sincerity. It's a pity that your cultivation time is too short, and you've even been poisoned by the six ghosts' resentment. Bo continued, if you were in the deity world, with your talent, there would probably be some deities willing to help you. But in the mortal world, there's no way. Oh, only the temporal temple can easily traverse the countless worlds. To them, saving you would be relatively easy. However, the temporal temple would always take the initiative to capture or invite you. Begging is not something you can do. Dongbo Shuang did not say much. The temporal temple. They had invited him once in the past. Now that these demigod teams were sent down by the temporal temple would definitely know that he had been poisoned by the six ghosts' resentment. They would also understand the torment he had suffered all these years. But, they did not invite him again. Was it because he had rejected them previously? Was it because they wanted to appear when he was in despair and bring up harsh conditions? Regardless of the reason, the fact that they did not invite him again was the truth. Actually, even if they did invite him, Dongbo Shuang would still bring up many conditions. He was very clear on how terrifying the temporal temple's restrictions were. If he allowed himself to be manipulated by them, he would not be able to escape. Even if his fleshly body was destroyed, his soul would still be controlled by them to carry out missions. Such a way of living. This was something that Dongbo Shuang could not accept. Bo, there's no need to say such things. The tall, skinny man, Bahan, who was wrapped in a robe, looked at Dongbo Shuang. Dongbo Shuang, your Xia people's palace Lord Chen has already told us your purpose for coming here. But you should also know, that this trip to the Crimson Rock Mountain is a gamble with our lives. Thus, we cannot afford any accidents. Understood. Dongbu Shuang nodded. To be honest, the difference in strength between us and you is too great. The tall, skinny man continued, however, since you have grasped the true meaning of mirage, we can consider it. Yes, consider it. The majestic Bo casually picked up a green fruit from the plate beside him. See this? I'll leave this fruit right here. As he spoke, he extended his hand and placed the green fruit on a rock in front of him. Since you were able to take this fruit in front of me, you have the qualifications to move with us, albeit barely. If you can't take it, then there's nothing we can do. You can go do whatever you want. We can't possibly bring a little fellow like you along. A hint of excitement could be seen in Bo's red eyes. Dongbu Shuang, are you ready? Dongbu Shuang understood. The test had come. This was the test that the team from the Temple of the Earth God had for him. If he couldn't pass, then he could only scram. I'm ready. Dongbu Shuang nodded. When I say begin, you can use all your methods. Bo smiled. Don't worry. I won't touch the fruit at all. I'll only stop you. As long as you can take the fruit away despite my obstruction, you'll have succeeded. The tall, skinny man, who was wrapped in a robe, narrowed his eyes as he watched with interest. The golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, who was eating some pastries, also looked at Dongbu Shuang. Begin. Bo grinned. As soon as he finished speaking, a visible ray of light shot out from Bo's fiery red eyes, enveloping the surrounding void. At the same time, Bo's aura began to rise, and his entire body seemed like a huge fireball. That terrifying pressure and undulation caused even Dongbu Shuang to be slightly shocked. This pressure and undulation had already surpassed that of faction heads Si Kong Yang and Mountain Lord He. In his memories, only the sorcerer god's saber had a pressure that surpassed his. Even the weakest one had the strength of an era suppressor. This Bo was indeed worthy of being an era suppressor. I've long heard of the true meaning of mirage, but I've never seen it before. Let's see how good it is. The tall, skinny man, Ba Han, stared at Bo. Come. Let me see your strength. Bo's aura rose. His surroundings were shrouded in red light. Clearly, he was scanning the entire area with his guard up. Careful. The golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, suddenly frowned and shouted. Amen. Whether it was Bo, whose body was like a blazing fireball, or the tall, skinny man, both stared at the stone in shock. The fruit that was originally placed on the stone had disappeared. That's right, it had disappeared into thin air without any warning. Dongbu Shuang, on the other hand, stood there without moving. He can actually sense it. Dongbu Shuang glanced at the golden-armored youth. His attack just now could be said to be unfathomable. That Bo, whose aura was overflowing with the heavens, and that tall, skinny man, who was using all his methods to scan the surroundings, were extremely vigilant. At the very least, they were not able to sense him at the instant he made his move. But that golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, Dongbu Shuang could feel a terrifying, dark, and destructive undulation coming into contact with his attack. Of course, he did not stop it. After all, this was a test, and it was Bo who was going to stop him. If Wu Ma Hai were to interfere, it would be too difficult to stop him. How is this possible? This. Bo's eyes were wide open. The terrifying temperature of his body was rising, and the chair he was sitting on was instantly incinerated into nothingness. Too fast. The tall, skinny man did not dare to believe it. The true meaning of mirage is indeed worthy of its name. The golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, laughed and praised, it is indeed worthy of being the most terrifying grade 2 true meaning in terms of assassination. The true body doesn't even need to act, and the mirage avatar can act. Furthermore, your mirage avatar can change between real and illusory without leaving any traces. Only at the moment of its activation can we sense the undulation. Your true meaning of mirage should have reached the stage 2 realm, though not yet. If it had reached the stage 3 realm, other demigods who have grasped hold of a grade 2 true meaning would not be able to discover it. Asterisk asterisk. Chapter 284. Dongbu Shuang nodded, admirable. Just as young Master Wu Ma Hai predicted, my true meaning of mirage is indeed at the stage 2 realm. His true meaning of mirage had reached the peak of the stage 2 realm. He originally thought that not many demigods would be able to discover his movements, but it was clear that there were experts amongst experts. An era suppressor might not be able to discover him, but the stronger leader, Wu Ma Hai, did. You were poisoned by the 6 ghosts' resentment, yet your true meaning of mirage reached the stage 2 realm in 100 years? Bo Bo did not dare believe it. This was too much of a slap to his face. The true meaning of mirage was indeed famous, but he felt that with his grade 3 deity heart, he should have been able to block the first stage realm of the true meaning of mirage. Who would have thought that Shuang would be so much stronger than he had expected? The golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, said, unfortunately, you were poisoned by the voodoo poison and have no transcendent qi left in your body. You cannot step into the demigod realm or use deity weapons. Although your true meaning of mirage is mysterious, your attacks are too weak. When the time comes, even if you meet some terrifying enemies in Crimson Rock Mountain, you will not be able to harm them. Yes. Bo Bo immediately nodded, your movements in the mirage are quite mysterious. You can be useful as a scout, but your attacks are still too weak. Dongbu Shuang listened without saying a word. If we bring you to Crimson Rock Mountain, you will be of little help to us, but we will have to bear the risk. This time, we are fully prepared, and we have been arranged by the powerful existences of the deity world to risk our lives. The lanky man, Ba Han, said, there are many things in this world that are fair. It is not impossible for us to bring you there, but you need to show enough sincerity. Oh, what do I need to pay? Dongbu Shuang asked. Xia people have complete information on Crimson Rock Mountain. Of course, this is the easiest. Palace Lord Chen has already promised that as long as you follow us, he will definitely give it to us. Actually, before we came here, we already had enough intelligence. It doesn't matter if you Xia people have more or less intelligence. The tall and skinny man, Ba Han, narrowed his eyes. We need you to be our team's spy. We asked you to scout ahead, so you have to scout ahead. Don't be afraid to advance. To us, this is the only thing you can do. Dongbu Shuang furrowed his brows, spy. You want me to go, so I have to go. Gentlemen, if I knew that it was dangerous ahead, would I still rush forward? Isn't that courting death? There's no need to get too close to investigate. All we need to do is investigate, said Ba Han with a smile. If you don't dare to investigate, what's the use of having you around? Bo Bo snorted coldly. Dongbu Shuaying's expression changed slightly. This Bo Bo was indeed domineering. Crimson Rock Mountain was left behind by an almighty being from the deity realm. You should have obtained information about Crimson Rock Mountain and should know that there is very little that you need to investigate. The golden-armored youth said, we won't be too demanding, but you have to pay a price. After all, we've been attacking along the way. All right. Dongbu Shuang nodded. I'll do my best. He definitely wouldn't throw his life away. One last request, the golden-armored youth said with a smile, we need 10 deity-grade scrolls. What? Dongbu Shuaying's expression changed, and his eyes burned with fury. Gentlemen, aren't you going overboard? 10 deity-grade scrolls. We must take them. The red-haired man, Bo Bo, said coldly, this is our final request. If you take them out, we'll definitely bring you into Crimson Rock Mountain. If you don't, then there's nothing we can do. The dagger was revealed. Only then did Shuang regain his senses. He had originally thought that the team from the Temple of the Earth God would be willing to bring him along after seeing that he had the true meaning of mirage and would not be a burden to them, and that he would help them out as a scout, since he had provided them with information on Crimson Rock Mountain. However, he had been too optimistic. Their true goal was the deity-grade scrolls. Impossible. Dongbo Shuang said in a low voice. Furthermore, I don't even have a single deity-grade scroll. You don't, but the Xia people do. The tall, skinny man, Ba Han, who was wrapped in thick robes, said softly, although very few of you Xia people have ascended to godhood, there's still a large number of them throughout history. After becoming godhood, their sorcerers should have refined some deity-grade scrolls, right? To the Xia people, taking out 10 deity-grade scrolls shouldn't be a difficult task. I heard that the Xia people paid a hefty price to save you. If you take out 10 more deity-grade scrolls. Dongbo Shuang said angrily, impossible. Don't even think about it. The 3 demigods from the deity realm exchanged glances. Actually, their ultimate goal was the deity-grade scrolls. The reason why they didn't mention this to the Palace Lord Chen was because they didn't want to scare the Palace Lord Chen. Hence, they decided to keep him in suspense before enticing Dongbo Shuang to bring them out. According to their judgment, Dongbo Shuang was still very important to the Xia people. Furthermore, he had contributed greatly to the deity-grade scrolls. It shouldn't be difficult for him to obtain a few deity-grade scrolls. One must know, the price of transporting deity-grade scrolls from the deity realm to the temporal temple was too terrifying. However, the Xia people were different. Every generation of Xia people who ascended to godhood could stay for 10,000 years before entering the deity realm. During this period of time, they would also contribute a lot to the Xia people. For example, refining deity-grade scrolls. Because they didn't need to transport them to the temporal temple, they could directly refine them in their hometowns. Of course, it wasn't easy to refine every single deity-grade scroll. In order to deal with the calamities of the past, the Xia people had used a lot of them. To the Xia people, every single scroll was their foundation. How about this? 10 might be too much. How about 5? The golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, said, 5 deity-grade scrolls. I heard that the Xia people used quite a few deity-grade scrolls to break through the 12 arrays set up by the beast race to save you. 5 scrolls, to the Xia people, this is definitely a relatively easy amount to take out. 5, no less. Bo Bo added, if you take them out, we'll be comrades. If you can't, you can go back. Dongbo Shuang forcefully suppressed his anger. As a person who was about to die, going to the Crimson Rock Mountain was a gamble for a chance of survival. Now that the Xia people were facing the threat of the great demon god and the sorcerer god, how could he ask the Xia people for 5 deity-grade scrolls? Not to mention 5, he couldn't even take 1. Farewell. Dongbo Shuang said, then turned to leave. The expressions of Wu Ma Hai, Ba Han, and Bo Bo changed slightly. Dongbo Shuang, no team would accept you. You're already lucky that we're willing to accept you. Wu Ma Hai said coldly. Then I'll go in alone. Dongbo Shuang said. With just you? With Bo Bo's strength, if he went in alone, he would most likely die. As for you, you'll definitely die. There's no chance of survival. Wu Ma Hai sneered, if you go, you'll be throwing your life away. I advise you to think this through. When you face death in the Crimson Rock Mountain, no one will be able to save you. It'll be too late for regrets. Dongbo Shuang walked out and smiled, thank you, young Master Wu Ma Hai, for your concern. Brat, your life isn't even worth 5 deity-grade scrolls. The lanky man, Ba Han, said loudly, as long as you agree, we'll definitely protect you. Ha, a dying man is worth 5 deity-grade scrolls? You've overestimated me. Dongbo's figure had already walked out of the garden gate and disappeared from the sight of the 3 demigods. The golden-armored youth, Wu Ma Hai, sat down in the pavilion, picked up a pastry and put it in his mouth, frowning. I didn't expect this Dongbua Shuang to be so unafraid of death. The moment I mentioned the deity-grade scrolls, he immediately rejected it. There wasn't even room for negotiation. To the Xia people, a peerless transcendent like him would be willing to take out 3 to 5 scrolls. However, this brat Dongbua Shuang didn't cooperate at all. What a waste. Bo Bo sat down on a rock beside him and said angrily. Forget it, let this brat die. The lanky man, Ba Han, said, what's the point of having the true meaning of mirage? In Crimson Rock Mountain, there are very few places that need to be explored. The main thing is to fight along the way. His strength is much weaker than ours. And, let's get ready quietly. Don't bother about him, Wu Ma Hai said. They actually didn't think much of Dongbua Shuaying's strength. Previously, when they let Dongbua Shuaying take the fruit, they wanted to intimidate Dongbua Shuaying and force him to take it away. Who knew that Dongbua Shuaying's true meaning of mirage was stronger than they had expected? Even so, they still didn't think much of him. After all, Dongbua Shuaying's attacks were too weak, and he didn't have a divine weapon. He was much weaker than Bo Bo. The only thing they cared about was Dongbua Shuaying's value in the eyes of the Xia people. Thus, they wanted to obtain a few deity-grade scrolls. Unfortunately, they failed. Take care, Lord Dongbua Shuaying. The guards at the entrance of the Terrene Shrine were still very respectful. Dongbua Shuaying walked out of the entrance of the Terrene Shrine and looked at the vast sky outside. He smiled and said, it's fine if I don't go with a team like this. At most, I'll just barge into Crimson Rock Mountain alone. Boom. In an instant, he soared into the sky. A spatial tear appeared in the sky, and Dongbua Shuang disappeared into it. Chapter 285. In White River City, the Dongyu restaurant was bustling with activity as usual. Dongbua Shuang walked into the restaurant. Boss, you went out to paint again? Boss Dongbua seems to be in a good mood. As the regulars greeted Shuang, Shuang smiled and said a few words to them. Soon, he arrived at his exclusive seat upstairs and sat down. He ordered a waiter to prepare 2 side dishes and a flask of wine. He ate the side dishes and drank the wine by himself. In just a short moment, Jing Qiu, dressed in a dark blue gown, walked up to the restaurant. Because she had been maintaining a simple spell, the onlookers only felt that Jing Qiu was quite beautiful, but not to the point of being breathtaking. If she really did not conceal it, after Jing Qiu became a transcendent, she would have been reborn. Her looks would be the #1 beauty in the entire Xia people. Ordinary women would not be able to compare to her. If she revealed her looks publicly, she would have caused a huge commotion. Snow Eagle. Jing Qiu sat opposite Dongbua Shuang. Her eyes were filled with anxiety. How about looking for the team from the Temple of the Earth God? What else can I do? Dongbua Shuang laughed helplessly. They didn't take a liking to me. Didn't take a liking to you? Jing Qiu panicked. Since they asked you to go, they should be prepared to bring you there. Why didn't they take a liking to you? From the start, they never took a liking to me. Dongbua Shuang poured a cup of wine. They already knew that my transcendent chi was gone, and I was unable to use my god equipment. They never had any expectations of my strength. When I first arrived, they even tested me. I passed their test perfectly. But what happened in the end? They still wanted God-tier scrolls. God-tier scrolls? Jing Qiu was stunned. That's right. They aren't that kind. Their ultimate goal is the God-tier scrolls. They asked for 10 God-tier scrolls right off the bat, and then lowered it to 5. Dongbua Shuang harumphed coldly. What wishful thinking. Jing Qiu and Dongbua Shuang had been together for many years. She was all too familiar with Dongbu Shuiying's temper. Jing Qiu was very clear that Dongbu Shuiying would never ask for a god-tier scroll, not even one. She could not do it because if she did, it would be worse than death for Dongbu Shuiying. Some things could be done. Some things should not be done. Then what should we do? Jing Qiu asked anxiously. Salad. Dongbu Shuiying laughed. At the same time, he picked up a piece of meat and brought it to Jing Qiu's mouth. Come, open your mouth. I'm the one who's anxious. You're really. Jing Qiu had no choice but to open her mouth and bite him. There's nothing to be anxious about. If there's really no other choice, I'll go alone. Ancestor Black Wind was able to come out alive that year. I feel that I can come out alive too. Dongbu Shuiying said confidently. Suddenly, Palace Lord Chen transmitted a message to him. He had always been concerned about Dongbu Shuiying. Dongbu Shuiying did not hide anything and told him everything. After that, he even reminded Palace Lord Chen, don't give these outsiders god-tier scrolls secretly. If you give them to them, you know my temper. Snow Eagle, you're really. Don't worry. Even if I really wanted to give them 5 god-tier scrolls, I can't make the decision alone. I need the approval of the entire Doyan's Council. Palace Lord Chen transmitted. This was the most crucial moment for the Xia people. They were facing the threat of the Sorcerer God and the Great Demon God. Even the ancestors of the Xia people were paying close attention to the movements in their homeland. To use 5 god-tier scrolls, not only did they have to go through the Doyan's Council, they had to let the ancestors of the Xia people know. That's good. Dongbu Shuiying smiled. Dongbu Shuiying was living a leisurely life in White River City. To him, it would be better if he could follow a team to Crimson Rock Mountain. But if he couldn't, it didn't matter. He was also waiting for the day of departure. According to Palace Lord Chen, there were already 3 teams that had arrived. They were the teams from the Temple of the Earth God, the Bloodshed Tavern, and the team led by the outsider, the Meishan Master, who had arrived in the Xia people's world a long time ago. Spear techniques focus on the foundation. Without a solid foundation, it's impossible to master it well. In the northern courtyard of the mansion behind the tavern, Dongbu Shuiying was holding an ordinary spear and practicing his spear techniques. The group of disciples who had come to learn spear techniques, regardless of whether they were young or old, were all practicing seriously. Especially after witnessing Dongbu Shuiying's unimaginable methods, these disciples became even more serious. Their gazes towards Dongbu Shuiying were filled with fervor and excitement. Dongbu Shuiying had also instructed them not to leak this information. Actually, he didn't care whether this information was leaked or not. After all, he was going to leave this place very soon. At that time, Jing Qiu would also leave this tavern. Before leaving, he decided to teach these children a little more. Each and every move of the spear was simple and natural. Experiencing the most basic circulation of energy in the physical world had also helped Dongbu Shuiying grasp the profound mysteries of spear techniques. Dongbu Shuiying suddenly frowned. Over 8,000 li away from the Dongyu Tavern, within a ravine, there was a huge village. Smoke could be seen rising from the chimneys, and the households of the village were huddled together. This was a huge village with over 1,000 households. A large number of children could be seen running around the village, while the women were washing clothes and preparing meals. The men had just returned from the mountains or the farms. Kids, let's go home. It's almost time for dinner. If you don't go back, I'll spank your buttocks. The men laughed out loud, and the group of children immediately ran far away. At this moment, an ordinary-looking hawker carrying a pole walked to the entrance of the village. His triangular eyes stared coldly at the village. This village is pretty big, and it's said that there are over 6,000 people here. This place is rather remote, and is far from the county capital. It's unlikely that the Xia people would discover us. After enduring for half a year, let's eat our fill this time. This hawker was a demon who had transformed into his human form. Their generals had been killed, and only one had managed to escape. They could only rely on themselves to survive. Father, father, the good food is here. Come quickly, come quickly. A child at the entrance of the village shouted excitedly as soon as he saw the hawker. How tender! The hawker's eyes glowed red, and his entire body suddenly expanded, turning into an ugly, 3-meter-tall, green-scaled demon. Its snake-like tongue stretched out from its mouth, dripping with mucus. The child, who was originally happy, was completely stunned. He was so scared that he couldn't speak. All of you. A violent surge of dark magic rushed out from its body. This green-scaled demon had completely gone mad. It wanted to devour the souls of all the humans in the village as soon as possible. Suddenly, in front of a group of disciples. Spear art, able to unleash and retract at will. Dongbua Shuang raised his body and thrust his spear behind him. With a swing of his spear, the spear's shaft straightened, and the spearhead pierced forward. The moment the ugly, tall, green-scaled demon appeared, and the dark magic rushed out. Whoosh! A shadow of a spear appeared out of thin air. The spear was straight, and the spearhead pierced forward, right between the green-scaled demon's eyebrows. The green-scaled demon looked at this scene in shock. Then, its body completely shattered like sand, including its sturdy bones and scales, as well as its weapons and storage treasures. It was so shattered that it couldn't be seen with the naked eye. The only thing that could be seen was its body crumbling and disappearing into nothingness. The shadow of the long spear that was thrown out also disappeared. Dongyu Restaurant, in the northern courtyard of the mansion. Dongbua Shuang raised his body and swung his spear. He then retracted his spear and shook his head. These demons are hiding in every corner of the Xia people's world. If they don't reveal their true forms, there's no way to tell. All of you little brats, practice more. Dongbua Shuang shouted. Yes, master. All of them replied in unison. Dongbua Shuang then sat on a chair at the side. Cold sweat could be seen on his forehead. The pain from the voodoo poison had reached its peak. Snow Eagle, good news, great news. The leader of the Bloodshed Tavern's team has offered to bring you to Crimson Rock Mountain. A message from Palace Lord Chen arrived. I'm a bit stuck. I've only updated 1 chapter today, and I've accumulated to 4 chapters. Star. Chapter 287. Palace Lord Chen, the leader of the Bloodshed Tavern's team, suggested this. You didn't give him any deity-grade scrolls. Dongbua Shuang was also excited by this news. If he could follow the team, he would naturally be willing. After all, these teams were all very powerful. Not only were they all at a high cultivation level, they also had deity-grade scrolls and treasures prepared for the Crimson Rock Mountain. As for him, he really didn't have any treasures. He only had his own strength. He still had to leave his most precious treasures for the Xia people. Moreover, he was alone. Even if he was confident in his own strength, the difficulty of moving alone would probably be 10 times higher. Don't worry. I can't possibly give you deity-grade scrolls. I don't have the authority to do so either. Palace Lord Chen transmitted. This is something that the leader of the Bloodshed Tavern's team suggested. I have to pay him a visit. Dongbua Shuang was very grateful. The headquarters of the Bloodshed Tavern was located in an ordinary county city. It was a bustling, super-large tavern that occupied an area of 1 to 2 miles. Behind this super-large tavern, there were many courtyards. In one of the courtyards, there was a team of demigods from the deity realm. Manor Lord, that Dongbua Shuang is only a saint-tier transcendent. He has also been poisoned by the six ghosts' resentment. No matter how strong he is, he probably can't be ranked first in this mortal world. Wouldn't it be a hindrance to bring him into the Crimson Rock Mountain? An old man with a goatee sat at the side and muttered. He was dirty and unkempt. Beside him was the bald, yellow-robed old man who was sitting cross-legged. The bald, yellow-robed old man nodded and said, "An old thief's words make sense. Manor Lord, this time, you have disregarded everything to enter this place. We have all gambled with our lives. We don't need Dongbu Shui Ying's help. However, if he were to affect us, that would be terrible." The choice of companions was very important. This was also the reason why the team from the Terrene Shrine dared to ask for such a high price. A normal team wouldn't be willing to bring someone who would drag them down. If they fell into a trap at a crucial moment, the entire team would be in trouble. An old thief. Uncle Fu, I've also asked around. This Dongbu Shuang seems to have grasped the true meaning of mirage or the true meaning of shadow. He won't bring us any trouble, said a green-robed middle-aged man. This middle-aged man had an extraordinary bearing. His aura was completely restrained, and he did not give off any pressure. However, he was the leader of this team. The Bloodshed Tavern belonged to one of the three superpowers in the deity world, the Bloodshed God Palace. The higher-ups of the Bloodshed God Palace could easily find many formidable demigods. Being able to choose this team was naturally extraordinary. It won't bring any trouble, but it won't bring any benefits either. In terms of scouting, my true meaning of illusions has already condensed a true deity heart. Isn't it more powerful than that brat's shallow true meaning of mirage? The goateed old man stared. The true meaning of illusions was a grade 3 true meaning, while the true meaning of mirage was a grade 2 true meaning. However, the other party had already condensed a true deity heart, which was extremely frightening. The two of you, that's enough. Stop grumbling. The green-robed middle-aged man said, that Dongbu Shuang has already arrived. Let's meet this brat. After all, we'll be comrades in the future, and we'll share life and death together. The goateed old man and the bald yellow-robed old man could only feel helpless. They could not change the will of the manor master. Very soon, creak. The door opened. A white-robed young man who looked slightly sickly walked in. Most transcendents would have a healthy complexion. Dongbu Shuang, who had been tortured by the hexing poison, naturally had a sickly complexion. Hex poison. The green-robed middle-aged man looked at Shuang as he walked in. He thought back to the wife he had married when he was young and had just become a transcendent. His wife had endured the torment of the hex poison for 30 years. She had accompanied him for 30 years before dying. This was a pain he would never be able to forget. The moment he knew of Dongbu Shui Ying's bitter experience, he had made this decision. It wasn't easy for this young man to endure the six ghosts' resentment for 100 years. Dongbu Shuang, right? The green-robed middle-aged man smiled. My name is Persei. From now on, we'll be comrades. Greetings, Brother Persei. Dongbu Shuang bowed slightly to show his respect. First time meeting, this Persei naturally released some of his aura. In the world of transcendence, strength was the most powerful. The moment Dongbu Shuang sensed the aura released by this Persei, he could faintly feel the roars of 8 ferocious dragons. Each of the 8 ferocious dragons represented a terrifying will. Some represented destruction, some represented venom, some represented violence. These 8 ferocious dragons were extremely terrifying, but at the end of their terror was boundless vitality. Even though they were clearly 8 ferocious dragons, they were filled with boundless vitality. Perhaps this was the principle of extreme yin giving birth to yang, and extreme yang giving birth to yin. He is indeed the leader of the team sent by the higher-ups of the Bloodshed God Palace. His strength is unfathomable. Dongbu Shuang thought. Within an ordinary county city, countless people were living their lives as usual. You scoundrel! Since you don't wish for me to live, I'll make sure you don't live either. Die, die. An honest-looking man was currently holding a butcher's knife with a savage expression as he furiously chopped towards a half-naked muscular man who was acting domineeringly. The muscular man glared at him and immediately pulled out a knife from his waist. You're rebelling. The two began fighting on the streets. Strangely, the other people on the streets did not feel any fear. Instead, their eyes turned red. Some started cursing at each other, while others started beating each other up. There were even some who directly attacked each other. Ha ha ha, beauty, no matter how loud you shout, it's useless. Within a house, a ruffian directly rushed in to grab a woman. The woman was crying out mournfully, my child, my child. Beside her, there was an infant still wrapped in swaddling clothes who had already lost all signs of life. Ah ah, my child, my child. The woman's voice was mournful. Gradually, her eyes turned blood red. Her fingernails dug into the eyes of the ruffian in front of her. Poochie, peel off all of your skin. A fierce-looking man sat there looking at the men and women being hung. Who asked this grandpa to be so happy today? I'll use your skin to make clothes. It'll definitely be nice. Peel, peel, peel. If the subordinates by his side were in the past, they would definitely be terrified. They would definitely be afraid that their master would become so cruel. But at this moment, all of their eyes were red as they laughed mischievously and picked up their knives. Those men and women who were hung were all cursing and cursing furiously. Everyone in this county city seemed to have turned into a demon, revealing the most savage side of human nature. In just a short period of time, the entire county city was covered in blood. The smell of blood permeated the air. More than half of the people in the county city had killed each other in a short period of time. The rest were still in the midst of all sorts of tortures and killings. Many died horrible deaths, and their wails and resentment filled the entire city. This sound is really nice to hear. Ha ha ha. In the middle of the county city, there was a skinny old man with an overflowing savage aura. The skinny old man stood in midair. His fingernails were very long, and he was currently holding onto a strange crystal ball. The crystal ball was already filled with countless vengeful spirits. These vengeful spirits and vengeful spirits were all wailing in agony. What's going on here? Another figure appeared in midair. It was a very cold and silent man. His aura was also cold and dark. It was ghost deity Knight Feng Dong. No matter how cold Feng Dong was normally, at this moment, he was stunned. He saw the county city which had tens of millions of people turned into a hell. The smell of blood and resentment filled the air. Buzz. He immediately borrowed the power of heaven and earth to instantly investigate the entire county city. What he saw made him even more furious. 80 to 90% of the people in the county city had died. Some of the deaths were so tragic that he could not bear to see them. The ferocious, crazy, and resentful aura of the dead made Feng Dong's heart even more furious. Who are you? Feng Dong also discovered the skinny old man in the middle of the county city. With a teleportation, he appeared in front of the old man. Feng Dong looked at the skinny old man in anger. He completely understood that all of this was caused by this old man. It's this crystal ball. Feng Dong could faintly sense that the crystal ball was releasing an invisible force that enveloped the entire county city. It was causing the people in the county city to go crazy. After they died, their souls were also attracted by this invisible force and were sucked into the crystal ball. Break for me. Feng Dong's anger reached the sky. He immediately attacked. A long halberd appeared in his hand. The long halberd turned into a black ray of light and instantly pierced towards the crystal ball. How dare you! The skinny old man immediately shouted angrily. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.